Perfect. Here we go. This is Sharath. I'm your host for this MLOps Specialization program. So welcome. So we will be getting started in next 10 minutes. In the meantime, so let's try to understand you folks much better. I will tell you why it is really important. Yes, it is really important for me. So I can set my threshold in my brains accordingly. So I can deliver this content. So which is suitable for everyone here. Okay. So let's get started. Okay. So probably you folks are joining from different parts of the world. So just let me know like which part of the world that you belongs to. Are you from, yeah, India? Maybe you're from US, UK. Where are you exactly from? So go ahead and use your chat window, try to describe. So here we have the first person. Sudhir is from US. Hey, Sudhir, thanks for joining. So we have, so okay, there's no name of a person. It says Dell from India. Hey, I. Dinesh is from Hyderabad. Sandhya is from India. Yeah, perfect. So Pratik is from India. So Samir from US. Again, we have one more Samir. Yeah, from US. Hey, Sandhya. Yeah, thank you. Yep. Sure, Manas. So Divya from Hyderabad, Bharat Reddy from India, perfect. Raghu we have from US, Texas. Hey Raghu, thanks for joining. So what's the time in US right now? I don't know whether you're from EST, CET, or PST time zone. Probably somewhere. I don't know, like maybe 8 or something, morning 9 or something. Probably. Yeah, perfect. So we have Brijesh from India, Rajasthan. Perfect. I can see like just go ahead and mention. So where exactly you're from? Okay. So obviously, and saying that, okay, let's get a bit refresh and let's try to understand why you guys are here. Okay. So what leads you guys here, first of all, right? So maybe an ad from the Facebook or ad from something else, right? Somewhere else, doesn't matter. But what leads you here? It's not an ad. It's basically the topic. It's something about AI, right? So something about AI industry probably might lead you here. But let's try to understand why exactly you're here. Okay, so my question is, you know that like everyone talks about AI, isn't it, today? I mean, and again, we everyone is having a fear of AI as well. We don't know what's going to happen. People says that AI is going to replace us. Yeah, I mean, maybe a jobs, but we don't need to get afraid of that. So that's why you are here to learn, and you want to be part of an AI industry somewhere, somehow, right? So yeah, so let's learn about that more. But here I want to understand, right? What exactly leads you here? I would like to ask this question. Usually, I ask this question to everyone, right? So there are two things, or three things I can say. Let's see what you're going to pick from here. So today, AI is being spoken by everyone, right? So, I mean, let's say AI is reaching all the corners of the world. There's no doubt about it, right? So, but the question is what you want to be, right, in a future, right? So, I mean, future is not something after 5 years or something like that. After this program, is what I mean. So, my question is, do you want to be a creator of AI, or do you want to be a consumer of AI, or do you want to be both? Let's see who is going to pick what. So go ahead and just mention whether you want to be a creator of AI, or whether you want to be a consumer of AI, or whether you want to be both. Understand my question carefully, answer your question. Okay, so answer this question. So perfect. So here we go. I can see most of the people's, yeah, few people's they say is creators, few folks they are saying both. That's awesome. Yeah, I can see now most of the folks are saying both. That's awesome, right? So, and again, let's say what I'm talking about. So what people says, right, are, let's say, the big folks outside, right, the big tech CEOs says, right? So let's say when we're talking about, when we have a fear of AI, so definitely having a fear of AI is good, but so that's why that will motivate us to do something better. So obviously AI will replace us. I mean, AI will replace the jobs, especially for the folks who is not going to harvest the power of AI, right? So definitely that's the reality, right? If you're someone, you know AI, but you're not concentrating on that, or maybe you're not showing any interest to experiment with that, or maybe not, let's say, playing with that, or maybe not learning that. So probably you might be the one, someone who would be replaced, right? So because in some fashion AI is being part of our life, right? So yeah, so that's the thing. And I can see most of the folks are saying both. That answers your question. That means you want to be a creator as well as a consumer of it, right? And again, let's say, what is the safest job that's outside in the markets? Nothing, right? But yes, let's see what exactly the safest job today. And so let's say here we want to focus, right? The ultimate lesson here, what we want to focus is basically, so what's your future is going to look like for the next 10 to 15 years? Let's say, in case if you're going to get into the part of AI, like here I'm talking about MLOps, right? So which is part of an AI industry, but there are a lot of other things, right? So how you can be positioned yourself and how you can be part of this AI. and where you can rule this world of AI for the next 10 to 15 years. That's where I want to help you folks. Okay. So we'll get started in next 4 minutes. Perfect. I would like to ask one question with that. I know that most of the folks want to be creators and as well as a consumer of this AI. So let's get started. I would like to ask one single question. So, what kind of a job that you do right now? So, go ahead and mention. Maybe you are a software engineer. Maybe you are a data scientist. Maybe you are a software tester, a cloud engineer, architect. So go ahead and mention who are you exactly. That really motivates me to put this content across everyone so that everyone can be benefited from this particular program at the end of the day. Yeah, here we go. So a lot of messages. I can see DevOps engineers, data scientists, data analysts, software testers. That's awesome. So we have DevOps and cloud engineers, product managers, if I'm not wrong, program manager. That's awesome. So we do have a good variety of folks here today, I would say. Perfect. So AI engineers, data scientists. Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, Dinesh has given a beautiful description. That's awesome. I'm a data analyst. I want to move beyond building models. That's awesome. Dinesh, let me help you with that. Okay, Bharat says data analyst. Perfect. So data engineers, we have data engineers, cloud admin, data analyst. Rakesh says, okay, AWS DevOps engineer. That's awesome. Game developer. That's awesome. Ramesh from US Texas, infrastructure operations. That's awesome. So we do have infrastructure folks. We do have people from data science background, DevOps background. Like I believe like I could have made the good team with you folks probably. Yes. So that's awesome. So yeah. So go ahead and mention so which what kind of a job that you do and. So let's get started. Okay, so here we go, folks. So before we getting started, so there are the three things why you need to stay till end of this particular program. Three important reasons. So make sure you stay till end of this particular program for the next 2 hours. So that means you can able to get benefited of what exactly your future is going to look like for the next 10 to 15 years. And especially, let's say what we are talking about, let me help you to push your job into AI. Let me help you to be an AI be part of your lives. So that's what exactly I want you to help. So and make sure that if you're going to stay till end of this particular program, you can able to get some premium ebooks of MLOps from us, and you can able to enjoy the live demo that we have put it on top of cloud platform. And yes, the most awaiting thing. So, what kind of a career opportunity is going to be there in terms of MLOps here? So, consider that most of you folks might have a question. So, Sharath, you might say, okay, I'm from data engineering background, software testing background, DevOps background. How can I make my career into AI? What really fits for you? So, that's what exactly we will be discussing over there. So please make sure you stay till end of this particular program to get benefited. Okay. Perfect. So I can see Amit says I'm a non-technical background. Perfect. So, but yes, so let me just help you with that. So go through this program because this is not the sales call. Don't fluff, right? So we'll be diving deep into the program first. Then I will be discussing about an actual program then. Okay. Not a problem. So that's awesome. So that's perfect. So let's get started in 1 minute. So go ahead and grab some coffee and snacks, whatever you need. And so let's have some fun ride with a lot of knowledge. Okay. So let's get started in 1 minute. Thank you so much. Okay, we do have 1 more minute, so we'll get started. Perfect. Here we go. So almost we have a very good audience today, and it's going to be fun and a lot of knowledge. So let's get started. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Sumit says trying to switch my career in ML field. So wanted to have complete knowledge. That's awesome, Sumit. Let me help you with that. Okay. We do have just 30 seconds. So let's get started. Here we go. So it's time. That's perfect. Okay, so officially welcome to our MLOps specialization program, the course demo. So let's get started right now. So the session is going to start right now, and make sure you stay till end of this program. Okay, so let's get started. A quick an intro, obviously about So it's me. Okay, perfect. I believe you could able to see me, folks. I believe. Yeah. Hey, folks. Yeah, this is Sharat. So I'm a founder and CEO of Citron Technologies, and I will be a host for the next 2 hours. Okay, so you'll be spending a time, and I will make sure that is going to be a best quality time and ever. So let's get started. So you can learn more about us. We are from Citron Technologies, and personally, I have trained more than 5,000 plus working professionals like you, especially who want to make their career into AI. Okay, so you can learn more about it. Yep. So now about our company in our website. So just go to www.siterontic.com. Perfect. Saying that, so let's get started with our today's program now. I'm going to turn off my camera, otherwise you'll be having my face everywhere. So maybe not. So let's get started. Okay, so here, these are the highlights of this particular demo. So what exactly that we will be learning throughout this particular program. So we will be learning, so what is exactly MLOps is all about, right? So what it takes to master MLOps for you, and how does a career opportunity is going to look like in MLOps. Okay, that's what exactly we'll be discussing. Let's get started. Perfect. Okay, here we go. Okay, the first beautiful picture. Okay, why? How does this picture is related to MLOps that we are talking about? Okay, here is a task for you folks. Okay, so I want you to take 10 seconds. Okay, take 10 seconds. Okay, just go ahead and try to observe this picture. Please use your chat window. Try to describe what is this picture is about. So let's see who is going to describe this picture beautifully, and try to extract some of the objects that you see in this particular picture. So what do you find in this particular picture? So go ahead and describe it in your chat window. So then I will answer. Then I will ask questions basically, right? Yep. So here we go. So we have the question from Pratik says, okay, dogs, perfect. Ajit says dog lover. So Narendra says entitled analysis, dog, human, identification. Okay, so Pratik again says image classification. That's awesome. So we don't have to go for the much complex things. Okay, so let's be more simple. Sumit says number of dogs and number of peoples. That's awesome, right? So Piyush says some paintings. Okay, that's awesome. Naveen says peoples are relaxing in garden, right? So people chill in a park with their pets and friends. What an awesome description. I love it, Joseph. Perfect. So Ramesh says a dark park with the white dogs with all owners. That's awesome. Good. We know that. So we are super intelligent. We could able to describe this particular picture, right? Isn't it? Perfect. But that's not my question. No, that's not my question, folks. Okay, let me just go ahead and ask my real question. Okay, let me ask my real question. How do you know this is a picture of a park? You said this is a beautiful picture of a park. You can see there are a lot of dogs. Yep, I can see there are a lot of dogs here. How do you know this is a picture of a dog? So who taught you this is how the dog looks like, right? And how do you know this is a picture of a trees, and you can see there is a men, and you can see there's a women? Perfect. Yes. Yeah. We know that. But how do you know that is the question. The question is, how do you know this? Who taught you? This is how the dog looks like. Why can't this be a cat? Right? So Divya says a law. Sandhya says a label data. That's an awesome answer, Sandhya. Perfect. But let's keep it more simple. What if I go ahead and take the same exact picture, okay? I will go ahead and take the same exact picture to this newborn baby, and maybe a baby is less than 1 year old. So do you think a baby could able to recognize the same exact things that you could able to recognize? Can a baby describe this is a picture of a park, this is a picture of a dog? No, right? But barely a newborn baby could able to recognize maybe a mother and a father, but apart from that, a baby doesn't know anything else, right? So what I'm trying to mention here, so we are a biological machines. There's no doubt about it. And so obviously, let's say the way we learn the data in different ways, right? So obviously, a baby born with an empty brain, logically, it's not empty, but let's say it doesn't have any sense of an environment. But a baby started learning from his maybe from his in mother womb, maybe, yeah, or maybe starting from his birth, right? So consider that baby learns how to recognize his father, mother, right? So baby started, let's say, learning how to walk. So, but what if I go ahead and display the same exact picture, maybe a bit of a grown-up kid here, right? This kid could able to describe this picture in a much better way, right? Than let's say a baby couldn't, but maybe this grown-up kid could able to recognize. Maybe it says, okay, let's say, how does this grown-up kid might recognize? I love to play with this park. I love to play with my dogs over there. That's what exactly you might say. But what if I go ahead and display the same exact picture, maybe a grown-up adult, maybe for you? right? He might describe it in much better way. That's what exactly you are describing it in the chat window. You say it's a beautiful picture of a park where I can spend my entire day over there, right? Isn't it? So with the beautiful dogs, with your friends, maybe with your family. So that's, you can see the way you describe varies. So that's basically the knowledge that you have gained, right? So we are the biological machines, and what we today talk about AI, so artificial intelligence, it's nothing but today human beings are trying to replicate on human beings, right? So we are trying to create an AI. It's a clone of ourselves. So obviously there's a different stages over there, but consider that it's all about data, right? That we're talking about. So consider that as a human beings, we consume a data in many different ways, isn't it? Just remember that how you consume a data. So consider that you consume a data through your eyes, right? You're currently seeing my slides. You're consuming my audio. That's another way of you consuming the data. And obviously by touching things, by feeling things, you can consume a data. And you can consume a data through your nose, isn't it? I can smell the food. I can smell the favorite biryani. I could able to recognize whether it's a Hyderabad biryani or a Delhi biryani, right? So as a human beings, we consume a data in many different ways, and we learn this data, and eventually we get better and better in that, right? If I put the entire growth cycle of a human beings, every day we exponentially keep on learning, and we eventually get better in that. And finally we expire, but that's a topic for different day. But yeah, so this is basically, it's we are the best examples of what we today calling it as an AI. Basically human beings are trying to replicate on human beings, right? Through this dumb machines. Yes, hardly, there's this machines could able to understand zeros and ones. That's it, right? So we are trying to replicate the same thing what we could able to learn, and where we could able to make a decision, because you have learned so much, you can able to make a decision. So let me tell you what's the best decision that you made today. Yes, attending this demo session, definitely. So you have made a decision, and again, so obviously it's drived you to this particular program. It's a one of a reason. Maybe AI is everywhere, and you have a goal of, and you want to be part of this particular AI industry, right? So you could able to make a decision based on what you're learning already, right? So we are trying to replicate the same exact things with these machines. So this machines doesn't know anything else, and we started teaching the same data that we have learned to these machines, right? So let's throw a simple example here. Why not, right? So consider that I have a document. Okay, let's assume I have a document. Let's say it can be a CSV file. Okay, so let's assume, so you have the CSV file. What data? This date in this CSV file, I could have any data. Doesn't matter. But consider that we'll pick a different use case. Okay, let's say I have collected a lot of electricity data from your home. I mean, the amount of electricity that your electrical appliances that consumes, how much energy your washing machine, water geyser, air conditioning unit, etc., any other electrical appliances that you do have. So I have collected all this data, the amount of voltage, amount of current it consumes, and the bills that you might have paid for last 3 years. Let's assume it's a 3 years old of data, and I have around 30,000 data points. So I mean, this is a CSV file. I have 30,000 rows in it. My goal is pretty much simple. I want to take this data. I want to teach this data to a machine. A machine can be a server in a cloud. It can be your own personal computer, and it can be edge devices like this, right? So what we call it as machine learning. We go ahead and teach this data to a machine, right? So what happens, this machine tries to understand the data. It tries to understand the pattern from the data. So what do you mean by pattern? Let's consider that we are talking about an electricity consumption data. Let's say machine understands how much electricity that you consume maybe in summer, how much electricity that you consume in monsoon, right, in a spring, etc., in various different seasons in winter. So it tries to understand, right, and basically it produces something called machine learning model, right? A model, right? I'm not talking about fashion model. No, I'm talking about a machine learning model. Just remember that it's like a brain which knows everything about your data, right? So let's say I'm talking about a machine learning model, and this is the model which will be part of final end product. Okay, so this is part of final end product, but this is not final end product. This is going to be part of final end product. But what exactly we can do with this model? So let's say I can go ahead and ask a simple question to this model. So tell me, what will be my electricity bills going to look like for the next 6 months? So I'm going to ask a simple question, right? I want it to predict. So what will be my first month bill? What's my second month bill? Blah, blah, blah. What's my 6 months bill going to look like? So what exact amount of electricity bills that I'm going to pay? So it can be a very simple use case. I'm asking it to predict the future, right? Or we'll throw a different use case again. So let's say instead of I'm taking a CSV file where I have a document, let's say I will take a bunch of pictures of cats and bunch of pictures of dogs. Okay. So I'm going to teach the difference between a dog and a cat. Let's say I'm talking about pictures, videos, anything that we can do with images and videos, right? We call it as computer vision, right? So again, machine learns the difference between a cat and dog, and again, a machine produces a machine learning model. So what we can do, let's say I will do something like this. Let's say I will go ahead and put a camera in front of my model, and I will be putting a cat maybe in front of my camera. So then my machine is going to predict, okay, there's a cat in front of your camera. So what we're talking about, an object detection, right? Your model could able to recognize an object, which is a cat. It's exactly what you've done in this picture, right? You could recognize that's a picture of a dog, there's a picture of a park, something like that, right? Or we are talking about today a large language models are, putting in a very simple terms, generative AI, right? So let's say we are talking about, there's a huge data that's available in the internet, right? So for a reason we call it as LLMs, large language models. Just remember that organizations like OpenAI, who made ChatGPT, or organizations like Meta, or AWS, or any other Anthropic, Claude, those organizations might have scrapped the complete internet from the data, data from the internet. They might have built what we call it as a large language models. That's why it's called large, because it's really large. So, and again, today what we call talking about this generative AI, for a reason we call it as generative. What does that mean? This generative AI models can generate a content which never exists. For an example, a text to text. If you input a text, it generates a text, correct? So let's say if you go ahead and ask a question to your large language models, right? Can you write the beautiful bedtime story for my kids? It does the job. And can you write the code for my application? It does writes the code for your application. And where we get a fear, okay, it's going to replace me as a developer. Actually not, but yeah. So otherwise we are talking about other kind of a models. Text to image. If you input a text, it can generate an image. Text to video, it can generate a video. Text to audio, it can generate an audio. There are different kind of use cases, right? So all falls in the industry called AI and artificial intelligence. Good, we got it. We got it where we are heading towards today. Yes, good. But where does MLOps really fits in? So what is exactly MLOps, and how can be really benefited for you, right? So let's get into that. So let's now talk about a typical workflow of creating a successful machine learning model. I'm not talking about a complete end-to-end automation or something like that. I'm talking about what's the minimal prerequisites for any organization to build a successful machine learning model. It can be a classical machine learning models, large language models, or Gen AI models that we're talking about, right? So let's say the journey start from the data, correct? Data. So consider that as a human beings, we consume a data in many different ways. A machine can also consume a data in many different ways. So your data can be a picture, JPEG. Your data can be in the form of CSV file. It can be a JSON document, text document, or even more, right? Your machine can also consume a data in many different ways. Perfect. Then what is the next step? So once we have a raw data that is coming from your customers for your use cases, the first step here comes someone called data engineers or data scientists. They does something called data preparation. So what do you mean by data preparation? So data preparation is something similar to what we do in our kitchen. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, let's say if you want to prepare your favorite food, right? Maybe if you want to prepare your favorite recipe of a food, it can be anything. Let's say if it, maybe I want to cook a biryani. Why not? So what I do first, I go to the market, I go ahead and buy all the ingredients, the masalas, vegetables, etc. Correct? Chicken, yeah, or mutton, who knows? Yeah, whatever it is. Meat, I buy. So then I come back to my home. I started cleaning my vegetables, some meat, etc. Then I put on oil. Then I put in ingredients. I started cooking. Right, here we go. The biryani is ready. Exactly, right? Yeah, that's what exactly we do in a data preparation. So what happens, the raw data that is coming from a market, right? I mean, from your customers, which has a lot of garbages in it. Data can be messy. Your data might have some missing values in it. Data might be incomplete. There might be something called outliers. So what data scientist does, our data engineers, they clean and prepare and they transform the data if necessary. So they clean the data. That's what exactly we do in data preparation step. So then comes the next step in a workflow is experimentation. So we have a data that is ready, but what is the game that we are playing? Taking the data, teaching the data to a machine. Perfect. Good. We got it. So now let's talk about experimentation. So who builds the model? Who makes the model? Someone called data scientist. Yes, he makes the model. So here comes the things. Let's say you want to train a model and he has a data in a previous step. So this is where he will be using an IDEs like Jupyter Notebooks, VS Code, whatever the IDE it is, where he can go ahead and write some code. It can be Python, whatever it is, whatever the programming language you want to use. And why we need to write the code here? Because you need to pick the right kind of a data, isn't it? So where is your data is coming from? Whether it is coming from your what is that coming from your kitchen, whether it's coming from a bedroom. Okay, logically, let's say where have you stored? Have you stored in a database? Where it is? Which storage platform? So we need to specify, right? That's why we use Python to specify. And again, the game is all about taking a data, teaching the data to a machine. What is a machine? A machine can be a CPU, a machine can be a GPU based machines, right? We need to specify what kind of a machine it is, right? He specifies that in the code, right? And then comes, he need to pick an algorithm, a software which can able to help him to train this data to the machine. So he picks everything and he runs the code, and that's where your data will be started feeding to the machine and it will start learning. So then it produces something called machine learning model, obviously. But here is a problem. Do you know why we call data scientist as a data scientist? Because scientists are someone who does an experiments, correct? So a data scientist, most of the time, he cannot come up with the best quality model because he does something called experiments. He does experiments again and again. He does the experiment different times, iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, until he gets the best quality model. Let's assume maybe after a couple of trials, he got the best quality models. Let's assume it's a first version of a model that he has produced. First version of a model. Okay, now let's talk about something called model registries. Okay, so what do you mean by model registries? Okay, let's talk about a software a bit. Let's say you might be using a various different softwares, a WhatsApp, a Slack, or maybe Microsoft Teams, etc. Right? Tell me, are you using the first version of a software they ever produced? Are you using the latest version? Definitely, we are using latest version of software, right? So the same thing applies for your AI. So AI models as a version. Throughout the life cycle of your AI project, your data scientist will produce multiple different versions of a model. Then what kind of a tool that we can use to version these models? We call it as model registries. We will discuss in detail later. So here we will be using a specific model registry. Maybe if I want to name a tool, I will call it as ML Flow. So which you can able to use it to version different versions of models, version 1, version 2, version N. Perfect. So let's assume now you have a first version of a model registered in a model registry. What is next? Now we talk about deployment. So now we need to go ahead and deploy this model to the production. It's similar to how we host a website, correct? So consider that you have a website, you go to www.google.com. No, well, let's say www.siteontech.com maybe. So you know our website, right? You know our website over there. But how does this website has been hosted? Yes, we put the code on a server. That's how it works, right? In the same way, we want to host a model. You can host a model in many different ways. Many organizations, they follow different strategies. So consider that here, let's say I want to Dockerize my machine learning model. I want to go ahead and deploy into Docker platform. And let's say there might be an organization who want to deploy the model to something called Kubernetes. And they want to deploy to something called real-time endpoint, a batch, serverless deployment. There are different ways to deploy the model to the production. Okay, so now let's assume you have deployed the first version of model. Then comes what? Okay, here comes obviously our dear developers who builds a beautiful apps, web applications and Android applications, a way you can go ahead and use your application. You know, ChatGPT, right, is a product. So basically, you use a ChatGPT UI to invoke a model, right? That's what exactly I'm talking about, right? So this could be the typical workflow of creating any successful machine learning model, actually. Okay, so we do understand what is machine learning, right? So machine learning is all about study of an algorithm, or mathematical models. So where your computer keeps on increasing progressively on that. It's all about teaching complex mathematical models to the machine folks. And once machine understands a math, it can go ahead and help you to make predictions, decisions, whatever you want. And again, as we're talking about programming languages, here comes your data scientist, someone who makes the model, not the MLOps engineers. Your data scientist uses a programming languages like Python, R, C++, right? We can use various different languages to get the model. And the question is, who built this kind of an automation? So this is the complete automation that we're talking about. So this automation is something will be built by who we call it as MLOps engineers. So let's go ahead and explore both. But still, the question is what exactly the MLOps is all about, right? So what is MLOps, right? So let's go ahead and explore MLOps right now. The first point. So now, before we go ahead and explore what is MLOps, now let's try to understand the state of machine learning across the globe, across the universe otherwise. Okay, so what do you mean by the state of machine learning? So obviously there is always a word called time to market, correct? Right? So consider that everyone who goes to the market first, they used to eat the bigger piece of cake. Obviously, someone who goes pretty much late with a lot of competition, they get smaller piece of cake, right? So that's how it's going to happen. So let's say what I'm trying to mention here. So what's happening in every organization today in terms of machine learning? So let's go back to last 10 years ago. Can we do a time travel? Yeah, let's go. Let's go to the time travel ship and let's go for last decade. So let's say I'm talking about maybe last 10 years ago, probably, right? Our last 10 to 14 years back. So let's say every organization at that time, every software industries at that time, they had a lot of data sitting in their organization, isn't it? And they're doing nothing with the data. So but that's the time where they started hiring for someone called data scientist and data engineers, etc., someone who can able to build a machine learning models. So the only focus for organizations last 10 years ago, they're building models, they're playing with it, they're trying to experiment what they can do with that. They have no idea whether we can make some money out of it. So but they're not operationalizing. So operationalizing is not at all a plan. What do you mean by operationalizing? Deploying the models and making some money with it, right? Reaching your customers. That's not happening. But if you talk about today, right? Almost, if we talk about up to date today, beginning of this particular year, you will see almost 53% of organizations who have POCs now they have started making it to production. So that means, and it takes an average for any company for 9 months to get started with and completing the operational part here. And you can expect by end of 2025, almost 75 percentage or 75 plus percentage of organizations will shift from piloting to operationalization. Okay, good. That's good news. But what's that for you, right? So how is that really helping for you? So let's say here we are talking about an organization who's building a model last 10 years ago, they're not operationalizing. But what it takes for any organizations to operationalize their machine learning models, it can be any classical machine learning models or large language or Gen AI models, any kind of a machine learning model that I'm talking about. So this is where an MLOps comes into the picture. MLOps is all about basically, let's say, it's all about building an automation to end-to-end automation to deliver your AI to the production. So MLOps is all about the practice for collaboration and communication between various different stakeholders who are part of building an AI project. So I mean, consider that when we're talking about different professionals who is part of building an AI project, there are data engineers, there are data scientists, there are ML engineers, there are MLOps engineers, there are senior folks, senior data scientists, senior MLOps engineer, MLOps architects, etc. The collaboration and communication between them, what we call it as MLOps. So basically, MLOps is all about, let's say, building an automation, right? When you're building such kind of an automation, it can able to increase the quality and simplify the management process of how an organization builds a model, delivers a model to the production. So when I'm talking about MLOps, as I mentioned, it's all about an automation. So you learn an automation here to deliver your AI to the production, right? Automating your machine learning or deep learning models to the production, to the large scale production environment. So deep learning models, which are nothing but all this deep learning based generative AI models to the production. So saying that, so now let's go ahead and try to understand the MLOps motivation in a high level view. Okay, so when we're talking about MLOps as a discipline that sits intersection with various different domains within an organization. Obviously, when I'm talking about MLOps, it's an intersection between a machine learning, DevOps, data engineering, and what we get MLOps. So let's say when this intersection of these practices, when they are coming together, they really drive a value for any organization and how they build, deliver, and manage their machine learning models to the production. But good, we do understand MLOps is all about automation, but without having a solid set of people's process and technology in your organization, MLOps discipline cannot be implemented in any organization. So it's also, you need to have a right set of people's process and technology. What we're talking about are tools, right? Yeah. Saying that, so now we do understand that. Now let's focus on the challenges here. Can we? Perfect. So when I'm talking about MLOps challenges, right? So let's say in the process of, let's say we are creating and managing a machine learning workflows, definitely any organization will run into a lot of different challenges here. So consider that, I'm sorry, let's say consider that. So we do have three different steps to get started, right? So let's say one is data preparation step, model training step, and model deployment step. Okay. So what do you mean by that? So let's get started one by one. Let's get started with data pre-processing step, right? So what we do in a data pre-processing or data preparation step. So in a data preparation step, let's say you might contain one to many tasks. Like for an example, you want to take a raw data from your customers and eventually you want to transform that data into, let's say, training data, test data. See what happens when you train your machine with your data. You don't train every data that you do have. You split into two chunks. You keep huge chunk for training and we keep smaller chunk for testing. See what happens. You might be having a kids. Let's say your kids go to the school, and how a school will evaluate your kids. They provide an examination, right? Yes, that's what exactly we do. We take a huger piece of data, we train the machine, and we keep the smaller piece of data to test whether machine is really working, whether it's making a solid predictions that you need. Okay, so then comes, we are talking about let's say the next step in a workflow, we are talking about a model training. So what we do in a model training step. So in a model training step, you might have some additional steps inside your model training. So whether you're doing single model training, whether you're doing hyperparameter optimization. So what do you mean by that? Hyperparameter optimization. It's all about the experiment. I did mention that. Data scientist is someone who does an experiment. He does these experiments again and again to figure out the best model, right? So consider that maybe he builds different versions of model, version 1, version 2, version 3. Maybe he decides, okay, version 3 is the good, and now I want to go ahead and deploy this version 3 to the production. So then comes, we are talking about a model deployment step. So in a model deployment step, you might have only one step in a workflow, or it could have many steps underneath it. So consider that here. Okay, let's assume you have first version of a model. Okay, can we go ahead and deploy this model to the production, the version 1, all done, the job is done? No, that's not how it works. So consider that when you have the best model that you have decided, okay, this is a model that can go to the production, you don't directly deploy to the production. So instead, first, you'll be going ahead and deploying to something called a staging environment, right? So what is a staging environment, which is an exact copy of a production, but it's not a production environment. So what you do, first you go ahead and deploy the first version of a model to the staging environment. Okay, it's not a production, then this stage is for whom? Obviously for your internal team. Because your internal team, maybe your MLOps engineers, your data scientists, they go ahead and do the further testing, a thorough testing, because you want to ensure that how your model is going to work in a production, right? So you test it and you feel it's good, then you go ahead and deploy your model to production environment. So that's how it's going to work. And once you deploy your first version of a model to the production, and this is where your customers comes and use your model, and at end of the day, they are happy, they pay your money. Yeah. Okay. Saying that, but yeah, so we have a different environments here, but even though we have a different environments, we need an additional control over there. Okay, so now you have a first version of a model. Can I go ahead and directly deploy to the production or staging? No. Instead, let's say I need an approval process. So consider that I might be having some senior MLOps engineer, senior, let's say a data scientist. He goes to the portal where he sees an approval button. So he go ahead and reviews the results of how your model is really performing. And if he is satisfied, he go ahead and clicks on the button, he approves it. So that means then the model will go ahead and deploy to the staging and production basically. So that's how it's going to work. So what we are trying to say at the end of the day, so there are a lot of different steps. So there are a lot of different dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides an iteration across the life cycle and also provide an end-to-end traceability, correct? But we are talking about monitoring. See, consider that when we are trying to build an end-to-end automation in order to deliver your AI to the production, you use a lot of different flavors of tools, infrastructure, and you need to monitor each and every tool here. And again, monitoring the model that you're deployed to the production, right? Monitoring also plays very important role. Yep. So that would be the major challenges. And now let's move on to the another word that we keep on using. So when we say MLOps and we say there is something similar to that, DevOps, isn't it same? We ask, right? Is this DevOps and MLOps, are they same? Definitely not, but there are some similarities here. So consider that the challenges that we discussed, right? The challenges that we discussed in operationalizing any AI model to the production, we have some common things comparing with DevOps. Basically, DevOps is that we use in a traditional software industry for a software production. So DevOps is used for delivering a new version of your software to the production, right? So, and again, in a DevOps practices, we use the CI/CD practices and source version control practices. They are exactly same in MLOps as well. And here we go. A good news for DevOps engineers. Okay, so if you are a DevOps engineer, you have an experience already that you can demonstrate when you're applying for the job. Okay, so saying that, so now let's see what else that we do have in MLOps here. Okay, so we talk about something called source versioning, tracking versioning data, model artifacts, model versioning. What is this is about? So to understand this, why don't we discuss about a beautiful story? Not a bedtime story. I'm not going to let you sleep here. So, but let's discuss a simple story which helps you to understand. So basically, how an end-to-end the MLOps would look like, right? Perfect. So saying that, let's get started from here. So let's go back to 2020. Okay, let's go to 2020. So you know what happened in 2020? That's the time the world has been hit by COVID, correct? So consider that. Let's assume in 2020 there is a data scientist. Okay, a data scientist is actually building a machine learning model for theater owners, for a movie streaming theater owners that we are talking about. Okay, so what is this model? What is the use case? So basically, this machine learning model is going to help a specific customer in order to predict how much money they're going to make by selling a tickets in a theater. It's going to help them to predict how much money they can make, right, by selling a tickets. But consider that it's a year 2020 and the data scientist didn't worry about implementing any kind of an MLOps practices. There's no automation. He has built the model manually. He has deployed the model manually. There's no monitoring, etc. But the problem is this particular data scientist assured a client saying that this model is going to perfectly work for next 3 years. That's a problem. But what happened? This model got failed in next couple of months. The reason is COVID, right? See what happens once the COVID hit the market, no one went to theaters. We gradually stopped going for theaters here, right? So we gradually started reducing for going for theaters, right? We didn't immediately stop, we gradually stopped, right? So basically what I'm trying to say here, your customer behavior is changing, correct? People who are going for theaters now, they gradually stop going for theaters, but the model that he designed, it failed, right? Because it couldn't able to understand the changes in the behavior of your customer. Technically, we call it as drift, a data drift. So because he didn't implemented any kind of a monitoring tools, especially to monitor the quality of a model or to monitor the quality of your data, he didn't. The model got failed. So in case if you could have implemented any tools for monitoring a data, so you could have just understood that, okay, your customer behavior is changing. That means I can go ahead and retrain the model with a new behavior of your customers, because I know that customers are no more going for theaters. So with that, a model could have been updated, but he didn't do it. So this is a one side of a story. But now let's go to another side of a story. Okay. But when we're talking about another side of a story, we are talking about a changes in a customer behavior, correct? So let's say before COVID, we are good, we are going for theaters, but during COVID, we gradually stopped going for theaters. And at the time of lockdown, we didn't go for theaters to watch a movie, correct? We are completely locked down in a home. But you might have noticed we've started watching more movies in lockdown without going for theaters. How? OTTs. So you know that OTT platforms has been skyrocketed at time of COVID. There are new OTTs born at that time. So this is again a changes in customer behavior. And during today, right? Even today, I would say there might be a very small niche of people who might have stopped going for theaters regularly. Because if I wait for next 30 days, I can watch the same movie in my time phase in my home, right? I can watch it anytime. So that's the changes in behavior of your customer. So that means I'm talking about your customers are your data, isn't it? Correct. So then comes your data has a versions here, isn't it? Before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, you have three different versions of your data, behaviors of your customers. So when we're talking about MLOps, tracking and versioning of data, it plays very important role. That's the first thing. So then comes source code versioning. See, consider that here, MLOps engineers are data scientists. You all write some script. Script doesn't mean just a programming itself. Maybe you work with ML documents, JSON. It can be any script that we're talking about. So the code that you write will keep on changing. Consider that if you are a developer, as someone who writes the script, you tell me how many times the code that you might have written has been changed. Maybe more than 1,000 times, you would say. So this is where the importance of source versioning control tools like GitHub might play a very important role. So then comes, we are talking about model artifact versioning and model versioning. See, we discussed, so throughout any machine learning lifecycle, so we won't produce only one version of a model because we produce various different versions of a model depending on a data. So as we discussed, there's a drift in a data. I train my new model with a new data that is available with me. So then I produce various different versions of models. It can be a machine learning model. At the time of you produce the machine learning model, so you have your own version of machine learning model, and you'll be also having a model artifacts. So model artifacts are metadata that comes along with your model. See, consider that each and every time when you train your model, you might be having a different data, different parameters, different settings for training this model. All those things would be called as model artifacts. We'll be also versioning that. So this is what it takes to build a successful automation to deliver an AI to the production. But this data scientist has not implemented any automation. That's the reason which has failed, right? So this is what exactly what it takes to build a successful automation here, right? That's what exactly that you will be learning in this particular program. But so we know that, but there's one more problem. So let's say when we're talking about implementing CI/CD practices, you know that the traditional CI/CD tools are not necessarily built for machine learning. So in reality, what will happen in most of the time, there will be a custom built tools. You might be using a custom built tools for data pre-processing, model training, and model deployment. So all these steps that I'm recommended here can be complicated and challenging. So where we want to stitch things together. So I want to stitch things together, right? Source versioning, tracking your data, model artifact versioning, model versioning, etc. But the another common challenges that everyone faces here, there is no a golden pipeline that you can follow here. So what do you mean by a golden pipeline that you can follow here? So today, let's say if I'm going to draft an architecture for your organization, not every organization can follow the same architecture because the requirements for technical implementation for your organizations can be different. Your organization structure can be different. Tools that your organization want to use can be different. Maybe an organization want to use AWS, Azure, maybe some organizations they want to use GCP. Or even though you're using cloud platforms, you want to use a lot of open source tools along with that, like Docker, Kubernetes, MLflow, Kubeflow, ZenML, etc. Right? So let's discuss further. So saying that, keeping everything that I mentioned in mind, so now let's start learning how you can able to master in MLOps. Okay, so let's get started. So what it takes to master in MLOps. First, let's try to understand the MLOps components in more detail. So what are the different components that we do have in building a complete automation? So first, we'll be getting started with use case discovery. So any organization, they definitely need to have an access to the data and the proper use case, right? If there's no use case, there's no point of, and there's no proper access to the data, there's no point of talking an AI or generative AI or any machine learning or operations, right? So let's assume any organization, they have a use case. Perfect. What happens next? So then comes a data engineering team. They build data pipelines because first of all, they need to have a data. They extract the data through pipelines, data pipelines. So then comes, we build a machine learning pipelines, an end-to-end machine learning pipelines, where you build an automation to automatically extract the data, clean the data, train the model, and deploy the model. Everything will be automated. So then comes production deployment, and then we go ahead and implement production monitoring. We discuss the importance of monitoring. Monitoring your models only is not not the only important step, but you need to monitor the complete infrastructure, right? Okay, so let's dive into one by one. So let's say first is business understanding. So then comes use case identification. They identify the use case and they first understand the data understanding, and they conduct what we call it as a feasibility study. Because any organization who is heading towards getting into AI or building some AI models that can help their customers to solve some problems, first they need to have this feasibility study, and they need to have an enough access to data, and they should keep on harvesting a data for your future as well, right? Okay, saying that, so the next step would be data preparation. So we do understand what is data preparation already. It's all about cleaning a data, transforming a data. So then comes picking up the right algorithm. So algorithm, there are many different algorithms that your data scientist would be picking to go ahead and build this machine learning models. And then comes in the next step, we go ahead and build a model. Basically we train, right? And then we conduct experiments. As we discussed, a data scientist conducts various different experiments to come up with the best quality model. And then comes a model evaluation step. So what we do in a model evaluation step, how does any organization knows that this is the best model and this is fit to be deployed to the production? So this is where model evaluation step comes into the picture. So testing a model, right? And at end of model evaluation, we extract a metrics. So what do you mean by metrics? As some kind of a numbers that helps your organization based on the benchmarks they have to decide, okay, which gets the confidence for any organization based on the numbers. This is the best model I can go ahead and deploy to the production. So then comes we talking about model serving. So where I can go ahead and deploy the model, right? So here I go ahead and deploy the model. As we discussed, deploying the models, every organization, they follow different strategy. I want to deploy it on AWS, Azure, GCP, maybe Dockers, Kubernetes, maybe serverless, IoT devices. Lot of options they have, right? So they pick one option, they go ahead and deploy it, and there we have an automation. So where we have an operation, we keep on operating it in a production. And so we have our monitoring tools, which keeps on monitoring the entire infrastructure, and where we have our monitoring tools to monitor the models in a production. We keep on monitor the models. And in case if there is any performance deviation, we monitor this and we optimize it, right? We optimize it by fine tuning with new data. We retrain it with a new data, for an example, right? So this could be the components. Saying that, so now let's head towards a very infinite number of times of important slide. Okay, so let's get started. I'm talking about, so this particular slide will get you a good idea about what an end-to-end and high-level automation in industry would look like. Okay, so we're talking about an automated ML pipelines versus a CI/CD pipelines. So let's get started. Let me have some water. Okay, so let's get started. So today, every organization, they're trying to move from building an automated ML workflows to a complete incorporated CI/CD pipelines. So in automated workflows, there's a straightforward way of implementing an automation. So where we have a data, do the data pre-processing, train the model, then you go ahead and deploy the model. But when it comes to incorporated CI/CD practices, this is where it adds a much better control, a visibility and scalability for any organizations. Okay, so when we're talking about MLOps, in the industry, we used to use a term called MLOps maturity level for every organization. See what happens, every organization on a day one, they don't implement complete automation. Let's say we are talking about level zero. Level zero is no automation. Everything will be done manually. Taking a data, preparing a data, teaching a data to a machine, and taking a model, deploying the model to the production. Everything is done manually. But once you go to level 1, 2, and level 4 is what we call it as an highest level of automation, what we call it as an automated retraining pipelines. So here in this particular program, so you'll be exploring this, understanding various different levels of automation and building a highest level of uh, automation to deliver your models to the production. So when I'm talking about a level 4 automation, and this is an example of a level 4 automation would look like. So let's go ahead and discuss that. Okay, so let's say the first step in a workflow is the project identification. Okay, let's assume, okay, the organizations has identified the project. Then the next step is obviously data. So we do understand the importance of data, and we do understand your data will change, correct? I did give an example of what happened during the COVID, right? And this is where we use a dedicated tool for versioning a data. We call it as data version control, a tool that helps you to version a data. Can I throw one simple example? It's called DVC, which stands for data version control. Or if I use clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP, they got their own tool to version your data. So then comes what? Data pre-processing step. So we do understand what is data pre-processing. It's all about cleaning your data, transforming your data. Here comes your data engineers or data scientists. They write a lot of code, a Python, for an example. And we do understand the importance of versioning your source code. This is where we bring code repositories. It can be, let's say it can be GitHub, Bitbucket, or any code repository that you want to use on different cloud platforms. And then comes a model building step. So this is where, again, your data scientists, they write a lot of scripts, a code, and a code has to be versioned. We do understand that a code that you write will definitely change tomorrow. So then comes a model training step. So in a model training step, this is where we take the data and we started training the machines. And here comes something called a feature stores. So what do you mean by feature stores? Feature stores are basically a schema repositories. So consider that. Let's talk about a features first of all. Let's say I have a voltage, a current, the bills, or maybe power. So let's say this is my data set, which actually helps me to train a machine learning model, which is going to helpful for me to predict what will be my electricity bills is going to look like for the next 6 months. Our voltage is a future feature, and current, the bills and powers, for an example. This could be a feature. But what is a feature store? A feature store is a schema repository which maintains a schema of your features. So, for an example, let's say with voltage, current, and bills, this can be a version 1 of my feature. And with voltage, bill, and powers and current, this can be a version 2 of my features. So basically, you can use feature stores in order to create a feature versions, and you can also transform your features if you want. A minimal transformation can be also done on a feature stores. Feature store is not a data repository. We don't store the data, we just store the information of your feature, a data type of your feature. So we fetch the right kind of a feature and the right kind of a data, then we started building a machine learning model here. What happens at the end of the day, when you build the model, you get model artifacts. A model artifacts are which is inclusive of your machine learning model. So now you have your model artifact. You have built a model. Perfect. So now comes we integrate your model artifacts with model registries. So what is model registries? It's a dedicated tools that we can able to use it to go ahead and version your machine learning models, right? So if I want to name a one tool, I would say MLflow. It's a very famous tool. You should definitely must have in your resume if you're focusing into getting into AI industry. Then comes, let's say model registry would help you to version any different versions of models, for an example. So now you want to focus on the deployment. So now you want to go ahead and deploy it on your favorite infrastructure, maybe real time, batch, or Dockers, Kubernetes, etc. So you go ahead and grab the best version of a model and you go ahead and deploy it, then you integrate it and you start operation in the production, right? So once you keep operating in a production, this is where we talk about traceability. So we need to monitor the complete infrastructure that you've built for your end-to-end automation, as well as you want to monitor the model in a production. And then comes we are talking about automated retraining concept. So consider that once in every, now you let's imagine you have deployed the first version of a model to the production where your customers can started using it. So what happens, maybe you have some drift, and maybe once in every 6 months, maybe you want to retrain your entire machine learning model with a new data, because your customers are coming with new data and you will be collecting all this new data, and again you want to retrain this entire machine learning model once in every 6 months, once in every year, or maybe once in every month. It's up to the use case of your organization. And you want to redeploy the model to the production. So this is what exactly we're talking about in level 4 automations, where everything is automated. Everything, starting from picking a data, pre-processing it, training it, going ahead and deploying it. So then comes, we do have a feedback loop. So from this feedback loop, this is where you would be going ahead and collecting the new data from your customer. You go ahead and store it again. So you create the second version of data probably, and you retrain the second version of data and you redeploy it. So we do have something called automated quality gates as well here. So what do you mean by automated quality gates? I can have an automated quality gates at the time of deployment, as well as I can have an automated quality gates at the time of data pre-processing as well. So automated quality gates can help any organization to decide whether it's the best model can I deploy to the production. Every organization will have something called benchmark. So consider that here, if I'm training a regression model, I would keep, if my regression, I want my regression model, let's say a specific metrics that I'm looking forward. If my MSE score is 7, let's say if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, if this condition is true, I want to go ahead and register my model to model registry. Otherwise, I will not register my model to model registry. If this condition is true, let's say if my MSE score is 4.5. So this 4.5 is something that I occupy at the time of training my machine learning model. So my MSE score is 4.5, which is lesser than equal to the benchmark that my organization has decided. Yes, it's true. It registers your first model to model registry. That means this model is an eligible model to deploy to the production. So that's how it's going to work. So this is about a level 4 architecture. But again, once you come down, if you go to level 3, level 2, you will be having a less automation, for an example, right? So saying that, so now let's move on to the next step. Okay. So we are talking about different roles involved in the process of building and complete end-to-end automation here. So you might be coming from a data engineering, data science, software engineer, you might be a software tester, cloud architect. You have a lot of possible ways where you can be part of this operations, MLOps. So obviously, when I'm talking about developing a successful machine learning project, definitely involves varieties of experience and requires extreme collaboration among a team. So consider that it depends on an organization. So where you can see a different roles, how you can be part of an AI industry, right? So let's say here we are talking about, so maybe a data analyst, right? So let's say a data analyst is someone who works closely with, let's say, a business team, as well as, let's say we are talking about a product manager. The ultimate goal for data analyst to extract the insights from a user data. So he plays with the tools like SQL, Excel sheets, range of data visualization tools like Tableau and Power BI, right? So when we are talking about your data engineers, so data engineers are someone who makes sure the infrastructure to collect the data, to transform your data, etc. So your data engineers would be working with tools like ETL tools, Hadoop tools, and data engineers would be working with feature stores that I discussed, data versioning tools like DVC, etc. They would be working with that. And here is our dear data scientist. So data scientist is someone who builds a machine learning model, not an MLOps engineers, not a data engineers. Not so data scientist is someone who makes this machine learning model, who writes a huge code in Python, who does it. So data scientist builds a machine learning model, the model which will become part of final end product. So then comes, you can also see someone called research or applied scientist. You don't see this kind of a role in many organization, but usually this research scientist, they would be working on cutting edge technologies, which organization works. Especially you'll see this kind of a roles in organizations like Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple, etc. So then comes, we are talking about an ML engineers or someone we call it as DevOps team. So we don't call it as DevOps engineers in AI industry, but usually we can say MLOps engineers or ML engineers basically. But what does this ML engineers does? So this ML engineers work will be overlapped with data engineers, and ML engineers mostly they will be focusing on taking the model which is trained by your data scientist and they go ahead and deploy this to the production. So ML engineers are basically deployment peoples, we can say. So then comes, you would be also seeing developers, we can say someone who takes everything and integrates and he builds an application, a front end, Android applications, everything. So then comes, we are talking about an MLOps engineers. MLOps engineers are someone who integrates everything and who builds this automation. This entire automation, the integration will be taken care by your MLOps engineers. So MLOps engineers are someone who builds this complete automation end to end, which integrates data, data scientists, ML engineers, everyone, and to finally take the model to deploy to the production. MLOps engineers also take care of an infrastructure, deploying the infrastructure, managing the infrastructure, and using that infrastructure to build, train, and deploy your models to the production again and again. The automation that I'm talking about. Okay, saying that, it's time. Why don't we go ahead and explore the different flavors of tools that's available outside in the market, right? Let's get. So as we're talking about, the world today runs on a cloud, and there are organizations, even though they're using a cloud, they use various different tools, right? So now, let's say we need a wide varieties of tools, right? It's like, okay, you go for a supermarket. What we do, if you go for a supermarket, you go ahead and pick the right things that you need. Maybe you need some groceries, maybe you need some vegetables, probably you need some uh, plastic items, maybe you need some electronic gadgets, etc. You go ahead and pick what exactly you need, right? Yeah, so something like that. So here is a slide which explains the different flavors of tools that's available in the market, but I didn't specify all the tools, which gets an enough idea for you to understand the different flavors of tools. Let's say we need different tools for versioning your data, for experiment tracking, code versioning, model registries, model monitoring, etc. But ultimately the game is, okay, let me zoom it. So let's say we know that the workflow looks like this, right? The workflow would look like this. The first step in a workflow is data collection and labeling. So first we collect the data, then we do data exploration. So which is nothing but cleaning the data. Then comes, we go ahead and use the clean data and we build a machine learning model, right? So once we have a model, then we go ahead and focus on deploying this model to the production, right? That's the final step in a workflow. So in order to implement the steps, let's say we use various different tools. Let's say we start from development IDs. As an MLOps engineer, as a data scientist, or data engineer, and anyone who is going to be part of AI industry, you do use various different tools for write a script. It can be Jupyter notebooks or VS Code or Spider or PyCharm, etc. There are different tools that you use. For code versioning, or maybe for your infrastructure as a code that you need to version, we use various different code versioning tools. It can be GitHub, Bitbucket. You have different flavors that's outside in the market, right? So again, so as an MLOps engineer, you'd be also playing with code versioning tools. So then comes a data labeling tools is more specific to your data scientist, right? So consider that you want to teach a picture of a cat to your machine, and your machine should have a label called it's a cat. So basically for labeling your data. And here comes the data exploration and visualization tools. So because as a human beings, we are a visual beings, isn't it? So if I go ahead and share you a CSV file, which is around 30,000 data points you have, if I ask you to go ahead and extract the insight from it, you cannot. But if I display the same data in a visual format, a graph, right? Something like that, we get better insight. So your data scientist uses various different data visualization tools like Matplotlib, Seaborn, Pandas, etc., to extract the insight from the data. So then comes we are talking about feature engineering tools, right? So where you want to play with the features, you can use various different tools here, sklearn. And this particular slide, what you're seeing, it has both cloud-based tools, open source tools, and as well as commercial tools. Commercial tools are like subscription platforms. You pay a monthly subscription and you can use it. So for an example, feature tools, right? They're commercial tools. Feast is an open source tool that you can use it for feature engineering. And here comes your data scientist. He uses a various different model training algorithms. Let's say sklearn, pytorch, xgboost, tensorflow, for building various different models. Classical machine learning models you want to build, or maybe you want to fine tune a large language models, or you want to fine tune any generative AI models. So he will be using various different algorithms. So then comes what? So he has a model, but data scientists want to evaluate by building a quick POC, a proof of concept, to ensure that his model works, it gets a good result. He go ahead and use different platforms like Jupyter, Streamlit to go ahead and temporarily deploy and check whether how the model works. So then comes we have a tools for model debugging and visualization. So this is where your data scientist would be using a tools for debugging and visualizing models. He can use open source tools like TensorBoard, or commercial tools like Neptune.ai, or weights and biases, which is again a commercial tool. So then comes we discussed about hyperparameter optimization. For a reason, we call him as a data scientist, right? So we use various different tools for hyperparameter optimization here. So then comes for experiment tracking. So this is where again MLOps engineers, data scientists, data engineers also comes into the picture. So here we use various different experiment tracking tools. One famous tool which I'm mentioning is MLflow, where you can register your experiments and you can compare between, so let's say thousands of experiments that you have, and you can pick the best model that you can use it to deploy to the production. So there are different tools. You can use Neptune.ai, you can use TensorBoard, which is again open source tool. So then we are talking about a tool for packing your machine learning model. Let's say I want to deploy the model so to the production. So that means I need to pack the model. So there are different ways to pack a model. So let's say you can pack your model in the form of MLflow, or TensorFlow, or PyTorch, or ONNX, or are you using open source tool, you can go for Kubeflow. So then comes, once you pack your model, what's the next step? We need to go ahead and serve your model to the production. So now, in order to deploy the model to the production, there are more than a one way to deploy it, but here I specified few. So let's say you want to deploy the model on AWS SageMaker, or Azure ML Studio, Vertex AI, Docker, Kubernetes, different options, right? And you want to use commercial tools like Bento ML, etc. So then comes a workflow orchestration. So this is where your MLOps engineers comes into the picture. So consider that I want to orchestrate my complete workflow, which I'm talking about an end-to-end automation, right? Which I want to build. So this is where you have an option to pick various different tools. You can use Apache Airflow, Kubeflow, ZenML, something on AWS, Azure GCP. They have their own way to orchestrate your pipeline. Orchestration is nothing but a step-by-step approach, how you can able to automate everything, starting from picking a data, cleaning it, training it, evaluating it, and going ahead and deploying it to the production. Again, scheduling the pipeline accordingly. Once in every 6 months, automatically the pipeline runs and it produces the second version of a model. So then we discussed about importance of versioning your data. So this is where tools like DVC, Git large files. And there are a lot of tools that you can able to use it for versioning your data. So then we discussed about importance of versioning your models. So we use model registries or dedicated tools for versioning your models. You can use MLflow. That's a very famous tool. SageMaker in AWS, they have their own model registry. Azure ML, they have their own model registry. Vertex AI, or any other tools that we're talking about, they have their own model registries. So then comes for model monitoring. Let's say now you have deployed the model. Now you want to monitor this model in a production. So that means you need to use various different tools. You can use SDKs, which is provided by cloud, or you can use open source tools. A pretty much famous tool, which is called Evidently AI, which I didn't mention here, but you can use other tools like Celdon, Fiddler, Vitra, etc. for that. And we discussed about feature stores, right? So feature stores are schema repositories for your features, and you can use various different feature stores. Every cloud today they have their own feature store. Or you don't want to use a cloud, you can go for open source feature stores like Feast, for an example. So these are the various different flavors that is available in the market that you can pick. Even there are more tools. This gets an idea. So what are the different flavors of tools that you might use? So consider that. So today I'm talking about your future into AI as an MLOps engineer for the next 10 to 15 years. Maybe in some point in time, you might be working in a lead positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead, architect, specialist kind of a roles. So who do you think in your organization who will be picking a right tool? An architects? Yeah. So how does any person who is in a lead position would pick the tool, right? There are various different ways. Whether you go for open source tools or whether you go for closed source tools, right? That's the first thing. So obviously we do understand that open source tools are always free, and obviously they are easy to integrate with your MLOps tools, right? There's no doubt about it. But the only problem is if you have very few developers who is aware about your open source tools, then it would be a problem. So then comes we are talking about platform versus specific tools. Either you can go for a cloud-based tools, and you know that every cloud follows a business model like pay as you go, or you can go for commercial tools. The commercial tools are subscription platforms. You go ahead and pay a subscription every month to use a tool, right? So then comes, you might be picking a tool where you have a model and production environment monitoring setup. So let's say if you're picking a tool for your organization, make sure it has a model monitoring capability and production environment monitoring capability. The complete infrastructure that you have for delivering your models to the production, at the end-to-end setup for training, right? Data preparation, etc. So, and then comes we are talking about, so making sure that you have a tool for monitoring your model and monitoring your environment, making sure that, okay, you have a bugs are documented and addressed in the meantime. And again, you have some security and compliances concern can be addressed as well. So then comes, we are talking about model templating and cataloging. So when I'm talking about MLOps, it's all about a templated workflow. So this is where it plays very important role. So consider that tomorrow when you're going to work as an MLOps engineer, for an example. So maybe you work with various different projects, but the question is, are you going to reinvent a wheel again and again and again for every different projects that you're going to work for various different clients? Definitely not. No one would like to reinvent a wheel. So this is where MLOps comes into picture. Okay, let's assume that you have delivered a one successful project and where you have templated it. And a template for a reason, so you can able to make some minimal changes onto that particular template, and you can reuse the template again and again to replicate a success. Right? So that's where model templating and cataloging plays very important role. So then comes, we are talking about model training, tuning, and drift management. So we do understand that. So MLOps is all about building an automation. So does a tool that you're picking, maybe on AWS, Azure, GCP, or any open source tool that you pick, so does the tool help you in building an automation? Automation for automated training, retraining, and drift management. One second, folks. So can you able to build an end-to-end automation? That's a question. Then comes a pipeline management. So consider that. When I'm talking about MLOps, it's all about collaboration between various different folks here. So you might be having a data engineers, data scientist, ML engineers, right? So testing team, your MLOps engineers at the end of the day, right? So do you have a system where you can able to collaborate and work with everyone? So consider that we are talking about, let's say you're running a pipeline. Maybe your pipeline got failed. So do you have a system where you can able to automatically trigger an updates and notification for your data scientist saying that your pipeline got failed, for an example, right? So then comes we are talking about collaboration and communication capabilities. at the end of the day, everyone will be collaborating together. So, and making sure that you document your workflows, right? Or maybe, let's say you're integrating a project management tools like Jira, Slack, for an example. So where you can communicate and work together, for an example, right? So these are some key features of MLOps tools when you're going to pick, right? So now let's talk about MLOps on cloud platforms, right? So here we will be covering the three major cloud platforms in this particular program: AWS, Azure, and GCP. So, and why cloud platform? And we do understand, so the world runs on a cloud. And especially we are talking about these three major cloud platforms, which is AWS, Azure, and GCP. So because they occupy majority of share in the world, right? So obviously that means most of the organizations, they run their machine learning workflows on these three cloud platforms. So in our MLOps specialization program, so we do cover MLOps and DevOps tools on all these three cloud platforms, which is AWS, Azure, and GCP. So not limited to cloud platforms, open source tools as well. Because there are organizations, even though they use cloud, they use open source tools like Docker, Kubernetes, MLflow, Kubeflow, ZenML, DVC, etc. And I have seen organizations, they use multi-cloud, right? I have seen organizations, they use Azure DevOps where they run their pipelines and they deploy the models to AWS, for an example, right? So that means I say it's a 360-degree view of MLOps. I mean, professionals after upskilling in MLOps, they could literally work for any organizations. Whether an organization is looking for AWS, here we go, you have a skill. Our Azure, here we go, you have a skill. Our Azure, our GCP, our open source tools. So that's how it's going to work. You get 360-degree view of MLOps. Your probability of reaching your destination to occupy or to the rule this world of AI will be made easier. Okay, saying that, so now let's talk about the different tools that we will be exploring throughout this program. So first, let's get started with Git-based tools, right? So we do understand the importance of Git. We use Git-based tools like it can be GitHub or Azure repos or any cloud-based repositories. It can be Bitbucket, or we are talking about other cloud-native tools like Google Cloud repositories or AWS Code Commit. So these tools are temporarily disabled for new customers. But yeah, there are different tools that's available where you can explore for versioning your source code, your infrastructure code, your ML, etc. So then we are talking about something called CI/CD. I might have referred to this word previously. So what is this CI and CD? So which I'm talking about. So continuous integration and continuous deployment. So what does that mean, right? So CI/CD is a practice that we use in any software industry to deliver a new version of a software to the production. So basically, the CI/CD practices improves basically a software delivery and improves the software development lifecycle. So let's try to understand what is this CI/CD pipelines, how does it works, and then we will go ahead and understand how the MLOps pipelines would also work with integration of CI/CD. Okay, so here let's consider that you have a developer. Okay, so you have a dear developer, let's say you make some changes to the code and he pushed the code to a code repository. And here is an automation. CI/CD is built for an automation. So it understands that your developer has made some changes. He has pushed the code to a repository and automatically it will started triggering a build. So what do you mean by build? So consider that there is a Java developer who written a code in Java. He pushed the code to a repository. And first step in a workflow, we build a software. So basically, the ultimate goal for us to produce maybe a jar files, a final artifact which we can able to go ahead and deploy it to the production, right? So consider that here we go ahead and build, and we also notify, because we are talking about your uh, DevOps engineers. So we need to notify that, okay, your build process has succeeded, or if it is failed, we say that it's failed. That means he can come and fix it. And once your build is completed, then we go ahead and run some test. Because when you have a software and when you have a machine learning model, testing your model or a software is really important to make sure that it attains and qualifies the quality that you need. And if all your testings has been done, we notify it succeeded, or if it is fails, we notify that your testing got failed. So then we focus on going ahead and delivering it to the production. We go ahead and deploy your software to your web application, web server, etc. For an example, let's throw a simple example here. Okay, let's assume here is a software in a production view. Consider that we are talking about an e-commerce website. It can be Amazon.com itself. Let's say an Amazon.com has a green color button which says pay now. Okay. And so basically, you know that green is not so much attractive. There are customers who complain, okay, I don't like the green color button which says pay now. Can you please go ahead and change it? Can you please change the color of green? So, and here comes, based on a feedback, your developers changing the color of a button from green to red. And here is our CI/CD setup. I'm using code pipelines on top of AWS. So, and I'm using GitHub as my code repository. And here the developer pushed the code to a dev branch that he has. So I have two different branches for two different environments. So I push the code to a dev branch, and here I have a tools where it will automatically understand that your developer has pushed the code, he has committed a code, and it will automatically start building your software. So once the building of a software is done, we generate an artifacts. Let's say jar file for an example. And once the artifacts are available, in the next step, I go ahead and deploy it. Maybe let's say I'm talking about simple web application. I go ahead and deploy it to a web server. So initially, I go ahead and deploy my application to my dev environment. As I mentioned, a dev or staging environment, which is an exact copy of a production. So maybe here I go ahead and do the further testing. And here comes your internal team. They go ahead and do a further testing. They check the functionality of a button. They check whether can we click it, the functionality is working or not. If all the test, and if they're really satisfied with that, in the next step, we go ahead and deploy the same exact feature to the production. So now the production is also served with a red color pay now button. So that's how the CI/CD works. And here is an example of a CI/CD in terms of MLOps pipeline. Again, we'll start from your data scientist here. Let's say he makes some changes to the Python code of way he want to build the model. He commits and push the code to a code repository, and automatically, let's say once he pushed the code to a code repository, your pipelines understands that okay, your developer has, our data scientist has made some changes to the code, and it triggers your pipeline. Everything runs automatically here. The first step in a workflow, what we call it as feature engineering, otherwise a data preparation step that I'm talking about, right? I do the data preparation right now. Once the data preparation is done, what we do next? The next step, I go ahead and train the machine learning model. I teach the data. Once my training is done, in a third step, I go ahead and evaluate my machine learning model, testing. And as part of a model evaluation, as I mentioned, here I go ahead and extract various different metrics. Let's say I calculate MSE score. Let's say I'm training a regression model, MSE score or RMSE score. So what is this metrics anyway? So metrics are basically a numbers which actually helps in any organization or a data scientist to decide whether it is a best model, can we go ahead and deploy to the production. Every metrics that he calculates as some benchmark, which is decided by a team. Let's assume, as I mentioned, so if my MSE score has to be 7, less than or equal to 7, that's the benchmark your organization has decided. And in a step number 4, this is where we have a condition step. Otherwise, I did mention about quality gate. Do you remember that? So this is where I have a condition. If my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, if this condition is true, then I go ahead and register my first version of a model to model registry. So this is where I have a model registry. So this condition has to be satisfied. If this condition satisfy, I go ahead and register my first version of a model to the model registry. So now I have my model in a model registry. Then comes the next step in a workflow. Let's say I want to Dockerize this model. I go ahead and Dockerize it. Then I go ahead and deploy it. So here again, I have a same setup. First, I go ahead and deploy it to, let's say, dev or staging environment. And here comes your internal team, maybe MLOps engineers or data scientists. They go ahead and do the further testing. And if they're really satisfied with that, then they go ahead and deploy the same version 1 of a model to the production. And this is where your end users can able to start consuming a model. And I go ahead also implement a model monitoring tools, which completely monitors the model in a production and keeps on monitoring and ensures that your model is clean, and it also notifies a drift in your data, etc. So this is how your MLOps pipelines would look like. Now let's also talk about what is, okay, one second. So let's also talk about what is this LLM ops pipeline. Let's say when I'm talking about LLM ops, it's all about, we're talking about delivering your large language models to the production. LLM ops is nothing much different than ML ops. It's all about ML ops for LLMs. So what do you mean by that? How do you adapt your MLOps methods to deliver a large language model to the production. Let's try to understand what's the difference here. Let's say you want to deliver any kind of your large language model. Let's say it can be a Llama based model, AI 21 Labs, Stability AI, Anthropic models, DeepSeek, etc. Let's say you want to fine tune it, then you want to go ahead and deliver it. So what's additional part here? That's what exactly we'll be focusing. So the first step in a workflow, nothing much changes. The first step is basically data preparation and versioning. Exactly same. Then comes here, we are talking about supervised fine tuning. So here we fine tune the model rather than training the complete model from scratch, because you don't have a budget to train the model from a scratch. We know the numbers. You know that DeepSeek itself cost around $6 million to train the model, which they claim is the most cheapest and cost affordable model ever built. And again, so let's say if we talk about Google Gemini cost around more than $100 million to build. You cannot build the model from the scratch. Yes, you can, but if you have a budget and infrastructure. But let's say here we are talking about fine tuning, using an existing model and fine tune that model with a new data. And again, we have the same artifacts. Let's say if you're going to pick a Llama model from Meta and you produce your own, after you fine tune it, you produce your own version of a Llama model. Maybe I would say Llama version 1 Citron. So this is my own version of a model. I go ahead and use the same model registries where I can version this models. Then I go ahead and execute the pipeline. So I want to go ahead and deploy this Llama model to the production. So I want to go ahead and deploy to the huge GPU based instances, maybe H100, H200 GPU instances. So then comes the two additional part that is not there is prompt engineering and predictions and responsible AI. So prompt engineering, prompting is all about the input that you feed to your AI. So that means it can able to answer based on your input. It's a question that you feed, right? So then comes, we are talking about responsible AI. It's all about building a responsible Gen AI application for your customers. And this is where your customer and AI also comes in picture. We do understand in the world of Gen AI, a lot of things can go wrong, right? Isn't it? Consider that we are talking about building a responsible AI innovation here. So consider that your customers can able to misuse your AI, especially the generative AI, correct? Because there are chances that your customers could able to generate an harmful content. It can be harmful text, pictures, images. It can be anything that can be harmful for someone else, right? And this is where a responsible AI comes into picture. A responsible AI acts like a filter. So consider that if your customer is inputting some harmful content to be generated, and you responsibly understand that user is trying to generate an harmful content, and your responsible AI replays back saying that I cannot assist with that request, right? I cannot assist with that request, basically. So again, your AI could also generate some harmful content, and where your responsible AI could also filter that particular harmful content. This is where responsible AI also plays very important role. Okay, saying that, so this is how your LLM ops pipelines would look like. Saying that, so now let's focus on the CI/CD tools that we cover in this particular program. So starting from AWS. So we do cover the complete DevOps tools on top of AWS, starting from AWS code pipelines, understanding code build, code commit, or code deploy, etc. So understanding the complete Azure DevOps tools, the complete Azure DevOps suite. So starting from understanding Azure repos, Azure pipelines, Azure test plans, Azure boards, a lot of things that you can learn. Then comes Google Cloud Platform. The Google also has their own set of DevOps tools, starting from Cloud Run, Cloud Build, Cloud Deploy, or Google Cloud repositories. So not limited to the cloud-based tools, we'll be also exploring open source tools like GitHub Actions, including Jenkins as well. So saying that, then comes understanding Dockers and Kubernetes. So we do understand the world today uses Dockers and Kubernetes. And again, a lot of the workloads today runs on Dockers and Kubernetes. So we will be exploring Dockers from the scratch, and we will be exploring Kubernetes from the scratch. That means the Dockers and Kubernetes for MLOps here. So not limited to Dockers and Kubernetes and open source, but today we are talking about a cloud-based Kubernetes services. So we'll be exploring Amazon EKS, which stands for Elastic Kubernetes Service, is a Kubernetes service on top of AWS. Azure has their own Kubernetes service. They call it as Azure Kubernetes Service. And Google has Google Kubernetes Engine. So we will be exploring both, where you will be learning how to build and deploy your models into the Kubernetes infrastructure, etc. And obviously, so not limited to the cloud, and not limited to the not limited to the various different clouds. And here we are talking about an open source tools that we will be covering in MLOps. starting from data versioning tools that we'll be exploring, DVC, hands-on, yes. Then comes Git large files. We're talking about feature stores, and like here we'll be exploring the open source feature store, which is a feast, which is pretty much famous that you must know. Then comes, we discussed about workflow orchestration tools, right? So we'll be exploring tools like Kubeflow, Apache Airflow, ZenML, Metaflow, MLRun, right? Kedros, a CML. There's a lot of workflow orchestration tools, including Argo workflow. And then comes, as part of an open source tool, we'll be exploring MLflow from the scratch, where you'll be understanding how to deploy the infrastructure for MLflow and how to register your models, experiments, etc. Then comes, for the infrastructure as a code for the open source tool, we'll be exploring Terraform here. So then comes, I did discuss about a pretty much a famous tool that's outside in the market for monitoring your ML models, evidently AI, for an example, right? So then comes, we are talking about a cloud-based MLOps tools. So where we spend a lot of time. So on top of AWS, we'll be exploring Amazon SageMaker. So where you learn how to build a level 4 architecture projects. And Azure, will be exploring Azure ML Workspace, where you'll be learning level 4 architecture project. And GCP, they have their own tool. They call it as Vertex AI. And where you'll be exploring the level 4 architecture projects on top of it. And for monitoring your models and infrastructures, every cloud platform has their own SDKs today. We'll be also exploring those SDKs on top of various different clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP. And not limited to, let's say, cloud or open source tools here, I would like to also give you a taste of a commercial MLOps tools that's outside of the market. So I'm talking about a subscription-based platforms. We'll be also exploring the tools like Isguazio, Olahai, Domino Data Labs, weights and biases. So our Upswork, our, let's say, Tecton or Databricks for feature stores, etc. So this would be the commercial tools that we're talking about, right? So then comes, we will be exploring the post deployment challenges. What happens after you deploy the model to the production? So that's where, okay, now the models has been deployed to the production, whether the job is done, definitely not. The actual job starts after you're deploying the model to the production, right? So this is where we'll be exploring the post deployment challenges related to software engineering, ML related, and what challenges that you face when you're deploying the models to the edge, mobile phones, IoT devices, etc. Right? So this is what it takes to master MLOps, the kind of a tools that we're exploring, right? So saying that, so here, why don't we go ahead and have some live demo? So here I have already built an end-to-end ML pipeline. So I will show you a console of Amazon SageMaker Studio, and where I will be showing my pipeline, the orchestration, and I will show you how I go ahead and deploy my model to the production, the manual approval process, etc. that I'm talking about, right? So let's get started. So please make sure that you stay till end of this program. So once we are done with demo, so the next thing that we're going to discuss, the career opportunities of yours, how it's going to be in the world of MLOps, right? So make sure you stay till end of this program. So now let's go ahead and have a quick demo on top of AWS. So here I have arranged a demo on AWS, but in this program, so you will be experimenting, you will be playing with me. That means you will, whatever I do on my screen, you'll be doing it on your screen, especially during the program. So let's get started with a quick demo here I have arranged. So let's get into the project right now. Just give me a second. Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. Let me just bring my screen. Okay, so here we go. Like this is your Amazon SageMaker Studio console. So which AWS has, they call it as Amazon SageMaker Studio. And when we're talking about Azure or GCP, Azure has their own platform. They call it as Azure Machine Learning Studio. In GCP, they have Vertex AI. They have a similar capabilities, right? So here, Amazon SageMaker Studio is a platform which is integrated with everything that organization needs to build an end-to-end ML pipelines. Are you interested to get started with, let's say, large language models or GenAI workflow, GenAI use cases? They got a model starting from whether you want to use DeepSeek models, Meta-based Llama models. So they got all the models for you, right? And here, let me just quickly go to the projects. So here you can able to see there is a one project that I built, which is called Citron ML test, for an example. So this is where you can able to see the end-to-end ML pipelines that I have built so far. And here you can see I have repositories, pipelines, experiments, model groups, endpoints, etc. So this is where you can see there is something called pipelines. So this is where you will notice that an end-to-end ML pipeline that I've built will be executing. It's a level 4 architecture project that I've built. As I mentioned, a level 4 architecture project, which is what we're talking about, an automated retraining pipelines. Okay. So here, so let me just show you the architecture that I used in order to build this entire orchestration, right? It's a huge work that goes into building this end-to-end architecture. So this is the architecture that I've used in order to build this end-to-end ML pipeline. Yeah, you can see it's huge, right? Obviously, it took probably an 8 hours during our program to build this architecture. So this is what exactly we call it as level 4 architecture. I'm not going to explain this architecture as of right now, but I will just explain this architecture in a very simple form. So this particular architecture has a 3 different pipelines in it. A one pipeline, let's say it go ahead and deploys the infrastructure. Let me just write it down here. So let's say I have 3 pipelines, a one pipeline, which actually deploys the infrastructure that needed for your team to go ahead and build, train, and deploy a machine learning model. I have a second pipeline, which actually builds, trains, and registers your model to model registry. As we discussed in a model, in order to register a model to model registry, we discussed about this quality gate. If my MSC score is less than or equal to 7. So yeah, if it is, it go ahead and registers your first version of a model to the production. Then comes, I have a third pipeline, which actually deploys your model to the production, for an example. It's a 3 different pipelines. So what you are seeing in this particular architecture. So basically the first pipeline is over here, which actually deploys your infrastructure. And here is your second pipeline, which actually builds, trains, and registers your model to model registry. And here is your third pipeline. Third pipeline is called deploy pipeline, which will grab the latest version of a model in a model registry. I might have version 1, version 2, version 3 is latest, let's assume. It go ahead and deploys the model to a real-time endpoint in SageMaker, right? So that's what exactly this architecture is. But here I will show you the orchestration that I built, right? So now let's get started. So here you can see I have a pipeline section. I have one pipeline which has executed previously. Let me just go to this pipeline. You can see I have one pipeline. There's a random name to it. If I go inside this particular pipeline, so this is the orchestration that I'm talking about. So this specific orchestration that you can see, this comes post deployment of my infrastructure. So this is basically the second pipeline that I'm showing. So the second pipeline, which actually, which is here, you can see, let me just zoom it. So you can see this is what exactly I do in a second pipeline. What's the second pipeline? As I mentioned, it actually takes the data, it will do the cleaning, pre-processing, trains the model, and registers the model to model registry. The first step, what I do is go ahead and pre-process my data. Then I go ahead and train my model. I evaluate my model. Then I go ahead and register my best model after evaluation of version 1 or version 2 it is to a model registry. So that's what exactly you can see it here. So the first step you can see in this orchestration is basically pre-process your data. So what use case that I've built here? So basically here I'm trying to predict an age of a seafood data. It's called abalone. So use cases can be anything, doesn't matter. So consider that whether tomorrow you would be working for an organization where you might be working with a banking sector, financial sector, health sector. This pipelines that I built, which is level 4 architecture project, which fits in any kind of a use case. So whether it's all about a template, as I mentioned, right? So you replace the data with your own organization data, you replace the infrastructure however you need, the pipeline works like a magic. So basically here is a use case that I'm talking about. So where I have trained an abalone model. So basically it's a seafood. I mean, in case if you're a seafood lover, probably you might have seen it. And abalone is a seafood where you have a meat within the shells, which we can able to eat. So basically the use case is to predict an age of an abalone. So based on an age of an abalone, the price is decided in a market. So that's what exactly you can see here. The first step is basically a data pre-processing. This is where your data is being feeded and where I clean and prepare the data. The next step in a workflow, so this is where my model gets trained. So this is where I train my abalone model. So then comes in a model evaluation step. You can see this is where I evaluate my machine learning model. So this is where your data scientist has pre-configured. Every step here, every orchestration here runs automatically. No one runs it manually because it's a level 4 architecture project. So here I go ahead and automate. So here your data scientist might have pre-configured to calculate a metrics like MSC, RMSC. It depends on the use case. Classification, let's say we are talking about precision recall. There are different metrics you want to calculate. So then comes, we are talking about, let's say, check MSC abalone evaluation. So this is what exactly I discussed about a quality gate. So this is where I have a condition. If my MSC score is less than or equal to 7, if this condition satisfies, I mean, if it is true, it will go ahead and registers your model to model registry. So which is this, you can see. So once the model is registered to a model registry, so then you can go ahead and deploy this model to the production at various different stages that you're looking forward. So now let's go back to your pipeline. So now if I go back to my pipeline here, let's go back. So, and here we can able to access a lot of other details. 1 second. Yep. So here I have pipelines, and here you can see experiments. So this is where your data scientist experiments will be landed. As I discussed, your data scientist conducts what we call it as an experiments. So then comes, we have model groups. So this is what exactly what I call it as model registry otherwise. So this is where each and every time when your pipeline runs, let's say I've scheduled my pipeline accordingly, so where it runs once in every 6 months, once in every year, and it automatically produces the second version of a model, and it will go ahead and register all the different versions of a models into this model registry. So now if I go inside this model registry, so now let me just pick the different model registry, so where I can show you a different versions of models in there. Yeah. So now let me go to this specific model registry. You can able to see that so far I have 3 different versions of models I have already trained. The first version, the second version, the third version. You can see the first version of a model is already approved. It has been deployed to the production. Second version of a model, maybe it has trained some point of a time, and it might be already approved and deployed in a production. So now you can see I have third version of a model, which is actually pending for my approval process. As I mentioned, I need an additional control over where I want to deploy this model to the production. I have version 3 of my model. I can go ahead and approve it. I can test it. If I satisfied with that, I can go ahead and approve it and deploy it to the production. So you can see already my first version of a model is deployed 4 months ago. The second version I just deployed 2 hours ago, and I have my the third version of a model which has been trained and yet to be deployed. So now let me just show you quickly how I can go ahead and deploy this model to the production. If I go to version 3 here, right? So let's say once your data scientist trains a machine learning model, he want to monitor a lot of different metrics in order to take a decision whether it's a best model. Can I go ahead and register this to production or not? So here I'm in a version 3 of this model. So here I can go ahead and check a various different metrics of this model. So here I have a training step. At the time of I'm training the model, how does the quality of a model looks like? So here I have a metrics, which I'm using an RMSC metrics where I can go ahead and check. And if I'm really satisfied with that, I can take a further decision. And here I have a lot of other things. The hyperparameters that I use, this hyperparameters will be configured by your data scientist. So the hyperparameters that are used at the time of you training a model. This hyperparameters might change for different versions of models you might train if you, in case if you want it. So then comes, if I go to my evaluation step, so far I don't have any evaluation metrics, but if I go to my deployment stage, here you can see it says pending approval. That means this model yet to be approved to deploy to the production. And if I scroll down here, you can see the kind of a machines that I would be using, a CPU based machine that I would be using to deploy this model to the production. All I need to do, if I want to deploy this model to the production, I can click on this pending model approval. I get 3 different options. Either I can go ahead and select approval if everything is okay, if the quality of a model is okay, or if I don't like it, I can simply go ahead and reject it, right? So I can simply go ahead and click this approval button. And here I can go ahead and type an additional message. Maybe I'm a senior data scientist or MLOps engineer, someone I am going and reviewing the model. So here I can go ahead and tell, okay, all test, okay, some meaningful message. And then I can simply go ahead and click save button. So once I click save, this model has been, the status has been approved. That means it has been now, it will start deploying to the production. So once the model is getting deployed to the production, under towards left side navigation panel under endpoints, you will see this model will get deployed to the production in some time, right? So that's how this end-to-end ML pipelines work. So far, the goal of and MLOps engineers would be building these three pipelines. So they will be working with an ML or JSON, a minimal of Python to go ahead and build these three different pipelines. So executing, managing these pipelines will be taken care by an MLOps engineers, and where your data scientists will be working inside this particular, let's say the pipelines. So that means you will be collaborating with MLOps engineers, data scientists. Your data scientist will be focusing on building a models, writing a lot of Python code, and as an MLOps engineer, will be focusing on the deployment of an infrastructure, writing an ML script. But you would be also working with a very very minimal Python here, but you don't need an expertise like a data scientist here, right? So that's how it works. So saying this, we will be building a similar and end-to-end level 4 architecture projects and all the three clouds, not limited to level 4, level 3, level 2 architectures will be also built in our program. So saying this, so now let's really focus on how does your career opportunities might look like in MLOps. So we do understand so where MLOps really fits in and where you will be also really fits in, but how you can able to make your career into MLOps. See, consider that you might be coming from a DevOps engineer, software testing, or maybe a cloud background. You might be a software development. Each and every folks has different advantage here, right? But again, what everyone we think here, obviously we are talking about AI everywhere, and again, so we fear of AI and we want to make sure, let's say if you're doing your career transition into the different industry, you want to make sure that it is AI proof, isn't it? Yes, obviously here we are talking about a field of MLOps, which is machine learning operations. It's a part of AI industry, right? So definitely what we are discussing about, let's say this is the latest quote which I really really like from Bill Gates. So it just made 3 months ago, I believe, one and a half to 2 months ago. It's basically from the late. I mean the late show from Stephen. So you can go ahead and check it. It's available on the internet. So Bill Gates just made a quote. So what Bill Gates said: AI is the only technology that has no limits. AI is the only technology which has no limits. What do you mean by that? See, consider that we are talking about various different software industries, and every time we fear about stagnation and where you sometimes you get saturated, isn't it? So let's say we are talking about industries where, let's say we are talking about DevOps industry. DevOps is everywhere today, right? And again, we are talking about any software development today. AI is good at building a software, writing the code. There's no doubt about it, right? But the question is, so if you are being a creator of AI, right? So you cannot be replaced at the end of the day because you are someone who is creating an AI. That means you are an MLOps engineer, someone who is being a part of creating an AI. AI cannot replace the creators, right? At the end of the day, you are the one someone is creating. So when I'm talking about this specific code, AI is the only technology which has no limits. AI is not the term that we are discussing today. AI is there last 5 years ago, last 10 years ago, it's there last 15 years ago. We talked about all these famous technologies, right? We talked about blockchains, cryptocurrencies, and I mean, blockchains. We're not talking much about it. So we're talking about IoT, other technologies. And other software industries, they're stagnating, but AI is taking a different different phases in each and every day. Like, so let's say last 10 years ago we're talking about building a traditional models, and today we are talking about building generative AI models, right? So tomorrow we talk about AGIs, tomorrow we talk about ASIs, right, etc. But it can be any kind of a models, a classical machine learning model, a generative AI model, it can be AGIs. They need someone, an automation person behind it who can able to help them in delivering this AI to the production. It can be any kind of an AI. That's where MLOps really comes into the picture. So who can be part of MLOps? So you can be a data scientist, you can be a data engineer, a data analyst, you might be a researcher, applied scientist, you might be ML engineer, DevOps engineer, or aspiring MLOps professional or enthusiast. Or you are machine learning professional who want to learn how to deploy the model to the production, or anyone who is having a skills on AWS, Azure, GCP, or Docker and Kubernetes, right? ML flow feast, or most importantly, and any individual who is having an interest to get into AI. So you could be the person, a perfect fit for MLOps. The only prerequisite is if you have a good understanding of a software and IT industry, you are really fit to get started. The only prerequisite is that. And again,
few people ask, okay, do I need to have a programming skill sets? Do I need to learn how to build a model? Definitely not. You're not a data scientist. You don't build models here. You take care of an automation. You build an end-to-end automation to deliver a model to the production. That doesn't mean that I'm not saying that with zero programming experience, you can become an MLOps engineer. You need to have a minimal of any programming experience. If Python basics, that would be definitely helpful for you, right? So obviously here we are talking about breaking free from the stagnation. And again, AI is going to definitely take different turns in the future and where you have an opportunity to keep on exploring, right? And let's say if I'm talking about a numbers, right? And numbers would look something like this. An income potential in MLOps. And definitely you folks might be coming from various different backgrounds, isn't it? I mean, experience. You might be a beginner who might be having a 2 to 3 years of experience. You might be having 8 years of experience. You might be having 18 to 20 plus years of experience, right? So when I'm talking about our MLOps specialization program, so we do have minimum of 2 to 3 years of experience, and we see a max of most of the peoples comes from 8 plus years of experience, and we see max of let's say 18 to 20 years of experience candidates they take our program. Why? For a reason, we call it as MLOps specialization course, because here in this particular program, so you can able to master MLOps on 360 degree. Consider that you might be an experienced professional, someone who is looking for getting started with MLOps engineering job role. Yes, it does work. Or someone who is looking for some senior positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead, architect, specialist, MLOps senior consultant. This can be the perfect choice for you. So consider that. And I'm talking about an average salary for someone who has a 2 to 3 years of experience in MLOps according to, let's say, global standard. So let's say when I'm talking about an annual salary range for people's might be in global US, etc., it would be starting from 165K dollars per annum. And consider that an average salary for MLOps engineers in India starts from around 35.9 lakhs per annum. So obviously, this is according to the global standards, according to all the MNCs outside, right? In Bangalore, what I've seen, like people are getting paid more than 47 lakhs per annum. And again, so let's say we are talking about this is an average salary, but actual numbers, you can listen to our testimonials because we are pretty much confident in what we are trying to deliver. We'll also talk about that. And let's say when I'm talking about, let's say AI job vacancy trend, it's never stopping. It's really peaking up and up and up and again, right? So let's say, because today every organization they are trying to integrate AI in some way. So it can be the form of generative AI, it can be apps, or it can be the problems they can solve with various different technologies in terms of AI. So AI is everywhere. And again, AI is a future and AI is future is today, right? So saying that, I would like to just uh, talk about how much time you got really here, right? See, let's one thing is for sure. Like, tell me when is the day that you heard about a revolutionized technology or a tool that you heard in your industry? I'm not talking about AI. Let's say a tool that really revolutionized your industry, a tool that you heard latestly. What have you heard any latest tool in a DevOps industry which transforming your DevOps industry, a software testing, but that tool shouldn't be a part of AI. So definitely not, right? So but consider that when I'm talking about AI, every day you hear a new tool that evolving in AI industry, right? So today we are talking about generative AI. So we are talking about AI agents. Year 2025, it's all about AI agents. Tomorrow we'll be talking about AGIs, ASIs. So AI is keep on evolving. But how much time we got? So consider that a quick example here. It took 10 years for replacing a chopper and a cameraman. Let's say, just remember that before 2009, let's say before the drones before the drones is replacing this choppers and cameraman. So where a choppers and cameraman has been used for shooting a movie or a news report, etc. But it took 10 years. 10 years is pretty much a long time for replacing this choppers and let's say the cameraman here. But definitely you don't get such kind of a time here, because considering the speed of an AI that is transforming, the people who get into the market, definitely they used to eat the bigger piece of cake, right? And so it's time is everything here. So you can take an action accordingly. So saying that, let me just now dive into our actual program. I will be discussing about an awesome curriculum that we got. We are really proud. We are the best program that's outside in the market. So because that's what That's not something I say. It's something that our participants attest to, the peoples who have got a job in a senior positions in MLOps, are who started in the beginner level of positions in MLOps. They say it, right? So let's talk about our actual program. So the MLOps specialization course, we are starting from May 31st. That means this month end. So our program would be starting from May 31st. It's a program on every weekends. That's an awesome, right? Because every weekend you can attend the live sessions. It's 100% live session based. So the timing would be like this. Let's say if you're starting your live session from India, so your timing would be 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. IST. That is every Saturday, Sunday, 7 to 11. If you're joining from EST, your time will be 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. If you're from CET time zone, it will be around 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. So this is how an awesome structure that we got for this program. Okay. So live sessions will be happening on every weekend, as I mentioned, 7 to 11 p.m. IST. And every Monday, you'll be receiving an access to the recordings of a live session that you attend. And every weekdays, we do have an optional debugging sessions. This is optional to attend. So there are two types of debugging sessions. So one is a scheduled debugging sessions, another one is unscheduled debugging sessions. So what is scheduled? So at least we do have 2 to 3 debugging sessions a week. If you're available at that time, you can join this debugging session. Or if not, you can go for unscheduled debugging session. So consider that, okay, maybe you are calling me around 2 p.m. In the afternoon. So saying that, okay, Sharat, I have this question. Can we connect? So based on a mutual understanding, we also schedule an unscheduled debugging session. So this is how the program schedule works. So now more details about this actual program, the MLOps specialization course. It's an 100 hours of program, or let's say it's a 12 weekends or 3 months program. It's a 3 months program starting from May 31st. So there are 50 plus live hands-on labs. There are 28 real-time industry projects. As I mentioned, a project which belongs to level 1, 2, level 3, level 4 projects, right? So level 4 architecture projects that we'll be building throughout this particular program. So apart from this 28 real-time projects, around 19 to 20 projects will be building it during a live session itself. And remaining projects, it can be your assignments or self-paced sessions that you might have, and one-on-one debugging session. The most USP of this program, so we do cover 360-degree everything that is needed for you to learn in terms of MLOps. That means you have 100% opportunity in every organization. Someone who is hiring for MLOps, maybe an organization is looking for AWS. Here we go. You have a skill, right? So our Azure or GCP, our organization is looking for completely open source tools. You have a skills, right? So we will be talking about an awesome curriculum that we got in next few minutes. So please make sure you stay till end of this particular program. So we will go ahead and explore what exactly we will be covering in this program. So here is a PDF. I will be also sharing the link to your in a chat window. And so there is an awesome surprise for the folks who are going to stay till end of this particular program. So encouraging that you stay till end of this program, right? So this program has around 15 modules and the best curriculum that's outside in the market. I will discuss about that. So now let's quickly go ahead and discuss about the pricing structure that we got for this program. Okay, here is an awesome thing that we have done in a pricing as well. Okay. So because folks who come to this particular program, they're not just here to learn, correct? So consider that there might be a folks who might be only interested in upskilling, but there might be a folks who are interested in upskilling, but post completion of a program, they need a support and handholding to move on to the next step in your career. Let's discuss about that. Okay. So now let's talk about the pricing in INR. So we do have 3 different pricing structure. You just wait. I will tell you why we have this 3 different pricing structure. Why not one? So it's all about the value that you want to generate from it, right? So we do have 3 different pricing structures. We call it as basic, advanced, and advanced plus. So here is our basic plan, which starts from just 42,999. And we have an advanced plan, which is start from 45,999, which is just 3,000 rupees more than our basic plan. And here is our advanced plus plan, which starts from 51,999, right? So, but why do we have 3 different pricing plans? Why not one? So this is where we understand what you do. Like you are a working professional, you do work, and again, still you need to upskill, as well as you want to go ahead and let's say transition yourself into AI industry. There are steps, there are efforts, right? How do we be part of every step of your getting into achieving your goals here. That's what exactly it matters. So let's talk about a basic plan. A basic plan starts from, which is costing 42,999. So which covers, you can attend live sessions, you can get access to the recordings, you will be getting an access to the debugging sessions that I'm talking about, and you'll be also getting a lot of other free resources like ebooks, webinar, interview questions, job updates, etc. So then comes a community support. Okay, so then comes, if you go for advanced or advanced plus plan, a basic plan is already included in advanced and advanced plus plan, like live sessions, access to recordings and debugging sessions, and other free resources, right? So, but here comes the added value, right? So folks who go for advanced or advanced plus plan, so here they get some additional premium support. So one is a resume preparation, 6 months of technical job support, right? And then comes a bonus reattendance opportunity. So what is this? So let's talk about a bonus reattendance opportunity first. A bonus reattendance opportunity is nothing but, see, we are a working professionals, and again, so we need to, at the end of the day, you put in your time and investment here. Definitely, everyone would like to take 100% of value, right? So this is where we optimize it properly. Let's say you get twice the chance to take a live sessions when you register for this program, especially for advanced and advanced plus. Let's say you are registering and joining our batch, a May batch, a current batch. Even after you completing our May batch, you get an access to the right next batch after a May batch. So that means once you completed your May batch, you get one more chance to take a live sessions again in a September. Why? Because most of the time, in a worst case scenario, maybe sometimes you might miss some live sessions due to your busy schedule. So what happens in that way? So you go ahead and get one more chance to retake the live sessions again in the next batch. So you don't want to miss anything from this particular program. So I making sure that you get 100% of value, right? So then comes, let's talk about this resume preparation and 6 months of technical job support, how it works. So this is where we play a very important role, right? This is basically a four-step approach. So what do you mean by that? Let's talk about step number one. So which we are talking about, so resume preparation, right? So in a step number one, what we're talking about resume preparation. So this is where we go ahead and understand who exactly you are. So what kind of a background that you're coming from, right? So maybe you might be coming from DevOps background, cloud engineering, a software testing. So how can you optimize your recording? How can you optimize your resume accordingly? If someone checks out your resume, it should say that you are an MLOps engineer, right? So or you might be having 8+ years of experience. What kind of a project that you mentioned, right? That means your resume can come under a radar of your HR easily, right? That's what exactly we do. Step number two is basically what we call it as a job portal optimization. So consider that it can be a LinkedIn or a Naukri, or it can be Indeed, or any job portal that you have in your country. We help you in optimizing that. So that means you can able to make sure that you're getting some good reputed calls from good organizations that's outside in the market. Step number three, where we play a very important role here, we call it as JD decoding sessions. So what do you mean by JD decoding sessions? Let's assume you have an interview day after tomorrow, maybe 3 days from now. So before you go ahead and sit for an actual technical round of an interview, you bring your JD to us and we sit for a technical discussion. So consider that there are two things here. So a strategy for getting prepared for an interview, right? So the first round of interview, maybe they have 50% of questions they would be asking from their JD, 50% of questions based on what you have in your resume. So how do you get prepared for that? We decode the different tools and we give an idea what kind of a questions they might ask, how you deal with that. And more important than that, they're definitely going to ask you a question. What have you done in terms of an MLOps in your previous organization? What you do here? You need to explain a story that can able to win, correct? So we help you in narrating this particular story, right? So the level 4 architecture story, for an example, right? A story that can able to win an interview, or how you can able to answer the counter questions with that. And then comes the step number 4. You got a job, you have a job now, right? So now you are working in a job, you might stuck somewhere, you need some assistance, you need some sample code. So you need some assistance, right? Or you might need some brainstorming, you need an architecture review. You can use this job support. So job support is not something we take your job completely, we do it and you simply sit. No, we help you push you further in your job. So we don't do coding for you. So we do help you and make you coding, right? So that's how the job support works. And this is where we play very important role and what our ultimate USP is. And once you go for advanced plus plan, The only difference is instead of you getting 1 year, instead of you getting 6 months support here, you get 1 year support, the same bonus related as opportunity. Then comes you have another access is called instant access to recordings. So what do you mean by instant access to recordings? Instead of you waiting for next 3 months, probably not 3 months. Let's say we are talking about this is the 7th of May. Solidly we have again 30 days. Let's say you don't have to sit for 4 months to complete a program. So folks who register for the topmost plan, they get an access to our previous batch recordings, a previous batch which just got ended last weekend. You will be getting an access to the recordings. So our previous batch, that means you can go ahead and learn any topic, any module, anytime, and parallel you can attend the live sessions. Okay, so this is about our features. And if you want to check out the pricing in USD, I'm sorry. So the basic plan would look like this. So your basic plan would be costing around $624, and your advanced plan would look for $674, and your advanced plan would be around $774. Okay. And obviously, without wasting a much of a time, encouraging that folks who have stayed end of this particular program, they get to know about this particular surprise offers. Yes. So there is some kind of a ritual. Okay, so probably this might be our 16th or 17th batch of MLOps specialization program that we're trying to do. With that, every batch that we conduct, we do some ritual. It's like for the first 10 registrations, we do provide these offers, but these offers are strictly for 10 seats. But unfortunately, we do have only 5 seats are eligible for this offer. Because what is this offer? See, most of the folks, they would like to go for advanced or advanced plus plan. There's no doubt about it, because you get twice the chance to attend the live sessions and you also get the support, right? The only difference is 3,000 rupees, right? So in that perspective, let's say we do provide something called a free upgradation offer. So right now we have only 5 seats, but how come 5 seats? Why not 10? Because folks who call us early, who discuss us early, we have given these offers already for them. So it's nothing but, let's say, are you looking for an advanced plan, which is a middle plan, right? Then don't register for advanced plan. So consider that, are you looking for the topmost plan, which is costing around 51,999? Don't register for that. All you need to do, are you looking for the advanced plan? Then you'd be simply going ahead and registering for a basic plan, which is costing around 42,999. And we will be upgrading you to advanced plan for free. And this offer is strictly till 11th of May. And let's say if you're looking for the topmost plan, don't register. Simply go ahead and register for advanced plan, which is costing around 45,999. And then you'll be upgraded to the topmost plan, right? So that means by registering for advanced, you get topmost plan. That means immediately you can go ahead and get started with our program in next 24 hours with the support from us. Okay, so that's how it's going to work, right? So you can go ahead and take an action. And again, most importantly, which we are really proud of, which we are really confident at, is a progress that we are trying to make, and basically what our participants could able to do, right? So go ahead and listen to our testimonials. They talk to us, and we do have folks from technical background, even a non-technical background peoples who could have we could able to make them achieve and get into the job of MLOps. I would recommend especially to go ahead and check Dipali's testimonial here. So Dipali, she is coming from not a software and IT background like you and me. She's coming from a mechanical background, complete mechanical background. She did work as a mechanical design engineer and marketing engineer, which is so nowhere related to MLOps that we're talking about. But she has a dream of getting into IT, especially into data science. But she started upskilling herself, but she got a job not into data science, but she got a job in terms of deployment of her models, and where she is lagging her skills obviously in MLOps. She did take our program, the MLOps specialization program. Obviously, people's from a non-technical background, she did took 2 to 3 months to crack the job. Yes, she could able to crack the job. Probably I might have sat with her, maybe more than 10 or 15 JDs I might have reviewed and helped her. And you can go ahead and check other testimonials as well. So here we have Rohit. He got recently placed. He's a DevOps engineer. Within 15 days, 1-5, after completing the program, he could able to get the job. And he got around 75% of hike within 15 days. And go ahead and check Harsha's testimonial. He got 3 different offers in 45 days. So our people's, I mean, our participants does talk about us, which we are so much confident in our peoples and our program. And why Cytron Technology is the best peoples. And so this is not a first time we are conducting. It's somewhere around 16 to 17th batch that we might probably would be conducting. So we are based out of Bangalore, India. We've been supported by Department of Science and Technology, incubated in PhD step previously, and basically we are into two different steps. Like corporate training is where we are majorly into, and retail training, which we are being part of. We're being represented to many international stages, and FKCCI award in Bangalore are, let's say, being part of in various different international stages. So go ahead and take a look into the testimonials, then you would take an action. You ask million questions before you take the program. I'm here to answer that. Okay, so with that, let's quickly go ahead and discuss about the curriculum. Then I will open the session for Q&A. So then you can ask me a million questions today, even now. So now let's go to this testimonials. I will also share you the registration links in a chat window right now. So the first link is for the registration. A second link that you can see on my screen, where you can also go ahead and download the same PDF that I'm reviewing on my screen. And as I promised, the folks who stay till the end of this program, you can be able to download the free ebooks on the third link. And here is my contact numbers. Please call me. You call me, ask million questions. I'm here to help you. Perfect. So with that, so let's go ahead and quickly review the curriculum that we do have. Here we go. Okay, so far, yeah, you can use your table of content to access the specific parts. So totally we have around 15 modules in this program. So we'll be getting started with a module number 1. So where we're talking about introduction to MLOps. So this is where we will be diving deep into the world of MLOps, understanding all the different nooks of MLOps. So here we'll be again discussing about the MLOps motivation, the challenges, and here most interesting thing, we'll be discussing about various different operations. We are talking about MLOps. So then what is this DevOps, AI ops? What is this model ops, LLM ops, foundation ops, or GitOps? And most interesting fact here, we'll be discussing about the CI/CD in production case study. We will take a look into how an actual companies they have implemented a CI/CD strategies in getting started with their operations. So module number 2 is where we dive deep into, let's say, ML and MLOps stages. So this is where we'll be talking about different stages like versioning your data, the code, models, features, containers, the testings in MLOps, the CI/CD automations, reproducibility, deployment, and monitoring. So more interestingly, this is where we discuss the open source architectures for open source tools like Kubeflow, Apache Airflow, MLflow we covered, or maybe Metaflow, Kedro, ZenML, etc. And here we discuss about cloud native architectures. If you remember that the level 4 architecture that I discussed, we'll be discussing about this level 4 architectures on top of AWS, GCP, and Azure here. And from module number 3, this is where we get started from Git essentials for MLOps. So this is where you will be getting started from the Git, from the scratch, understanding, let's say, the Git based commands, branchings, collaboration, etc. And Git plays very important role moving towards an MLOps here. So module number 4 is where we get started with CI/CD strategies on all the clouds. We cover CI/CD tools on top of AWS, Azure, GCP, including open source tools like GitHub Actions. So this is where we'll be exploring the complete DevOps tools on top of AWS, and we build one project exploring the complete DevOps tools. And we'll be exploring all the DevOps tools on top of GCP, and we'll be building a one project exploring how GCP DevOps tools work. Hands-on project. That means whatever I do on my screen, parallelly you'll be building it on your screen. That's how it's going to work. So then comes exploring the complete Azure DevOps and exploring the various different Azure DevOps tools using ML pipeline structure to build an ML based pipelines. And we'll be also exploring infrastructure as a code with Azure DevOps. And we'll be building a one project with that. And as part of an open source tool, we'll be also covering GitHub Actions. So this is where we'll be exploring GitHub Actions as an open source tool, and we'll be also building a one project over there. So then comes a module number 5, an interesting module. So this is where we'll be covering a Dockers and Kubernetes from the scratch for MLOps. Anything related to MLOps here, so we'll be getting started from a scratch. Yes, we'll be covering Dockers and Kubernetes from scratch, understanding the Dockers, the foundation, the commands, understanding various different components of Dockers like network, volume, campus, swarm. And here we'll be building a multiple projects to get started, understanding how to Dockerize a simple software, till understanding how to Dockerize a model and deploying it, and building an end-to-end application with Docker Compass. Understanding Kubernetes completely from the scratch, understanding various different components of Kubernetes, of resources of Kubernetes, and building an end-to-end project understanding how you can deploy your models on Kubernetes infrastructure. We do have different modules for Kubernetes. So module number 6 is again Kubernetes. We talk about Kubernetes deployment strategy, like blue-green deployment strategy, A/B testing, etc. So here we'll be also exploring a cloud-based Kubernetes services. It can be EKS on top of AWS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, or AKS or GKE will be also covered in this program in further modules. So then comes module number 7. Again, the interesting module for open source tools. So we'll be exploring open source tools for versioning your data, the code, experiments, model registries, and model monitoring. So this is where we will be getting started with MLflow. There are 2 projects that we are planning on MLflow. The first project is deploying your MLflow stack on a cloud, then using the existing stack to build, train, deploy your machine learning models through MLflow. Then comes, we will be also exploring DVC. You will be getting started with understanding DVC for versioning your data. You'll be learning how to version your data and store it and version it in any cloud platform. So you'll be also exploring Git large files as well. So then comes module number 8. We do have dedicated module for feature stores. So here we'll be exploring a various different feature stores that's available in the market, starting from understanding SageMaker feature store, Vertex AI feature store, Databricks feature store, Feast, HubSpot, etc. And to getting started, we'll be using an open source feature store like a Feast to build our own feature store, like online, offline feature store. There are different things that we'll be exploring here. Then comes module number 9, the most important module, which helps you become an expert in level 4 architecture projects. Do you remember that architecture I showed you? This is going to belongs to the module number 9. So this is where we'll be exploring an AWS tools for building an end-to-end level 4 architecture projects. So we'll be getting started with Amazon SageMaker, using Amazon SageMaker pipeline, the same SageMaker Studio that I showed you in a demo. So where you'll be learning to deploy end-to-end ML pipelines using SageMaker Studio. Similarly, on top of GCP, we'll be exploring Vertex AI. We'll be exploring all the components of Vertex AI, and we'll be getting started with building a similar end-to-end level 4 architecture project on GCP. Then comes the beast, Azure ML, Azure MLOps. Here we'll be exploring Azure DevOps, Azure AML Studio, learning how to build an end-to-end and MLOps version 2 pipelines, which is latestly available on top of Azure. We'll be building that. Not limited to cloud-based tools. This is where we'll be exploring module number 10. Let's say if you're an organization, you don't want to use any cloud, you want to go for open source. Here comes Kubeflow. So Kubeflow is a framework that sits on top of Kubernetes, which is again part of Kubernetes here. So we'll be exploring Kubeflow completely from the scratch and using an open source version of Kubeflow for building an end-to-end MLOps pipeline on top of it. So this is our module number 10. And then comes a module number 11, a new edition. This is where we'll be exploring MLOps for LLMs. So this is where we'll be getting started with MLOps, LLM ops, and generative AI. So that means the MLOps that is needed for getting started with generative AI. So we'll be exploring the various different aspects of generative AI, understanding what is prompt engineering, are the 4 different approaches what any organization will take in order to deploy their large language models to the production, right? So this is where the one project that we'll be implementing. So we'll be focusing on responsible AI. So you'll be learning how to build a complete responsible AI services for delivering your AI to the production in a responsible way. And then comes module number 12. So this is where we will be exploring a dedicated module for understanding model monitoring. So this is where we'll be exploring a model monitoring tools on top of all the cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. And we'll be exploring various different SDKs, and we'll be also building one of a project on a cloud. So understanding how to monitor your model and infrastructure. So module number 13, which we call it as introduction to commercial tools or AutoML tools, we'll be also exploring the commercial tools like Isguazio, weights and biases, and we'll be also planning one of a demo on top of it. So then comes module number 14, the most important module again, post-deployment challenges. This is where we'll be talking about what kind of a challenges as an MLOps engineer that you would be facing once you deploy the model to the production. We'll be exploring various different aspects. And again, here we'll be using an open source tool like Evidently AI for building a complete end-to-end model monitoring job for monitoring your data quality, a drift, etc. Then comes module number 15. And module number 15 will be a self-paced videos where we will be sharing a pre-recorded videos. And again, module number 15 will be completely depending on other modules from module number 1 to module number 14. So here, module number 15 is completely focused on open source and cloud-based MLOps tools. So here you will be exploring Jenkins, how you can able to adapt Jenkins for MLOps. And again, you will be building a 2 projects on Jenkins. So again, which is based on the topics that you already learn at the top. So here you'll be learning how to get started with Jenkins project. Then comes another project. We'll be building an end-to-end ML pipelines using Jenkins, the Dockers that you learned on the top modules, and ML flow that you learned on top. So then comes, you will be also exploring Apache Airflow, which is mostly into, let's say, data engineering. But here, how can you use Apache Airflow also to build an end-to-end ML pipelines? Again, there are 2 projects. First, you'll be exploring how to build an ETL data pipelines, then using Apache Airflow for building an end-to-end ML pipelines, which where again we'll be using Dockers, which we have learned on the top. Here, we'll be also exploring Google Kubernetes engine. In the above modules, you'll be exploring EKS, but here you'll be exploring GKE. And here, obviously, not limited. I need to also cover Azure Kubernetes Service. Yes, we do also cover Azure Kubernetes Service. As usual, Terraform as well for infrastructure. So as part of an infrastructure as a code in this program, so we'll be exploring the cloud-based tools. In AWS, we have CloudFormation. In Azure, we'll be using Azure DevOps through CLIs to deploy the infrastructure. Not limited to that, we'll be also exploring Terraform, how you can work with Terraform for deploying an infrastructure. There are 2 projects that we'll be also working with that. And the final topic, you'll be also exploring Argo workflow. Argo workflow, which is again part of Kubernetes. So Argo workflow is an alternative for Kubeflow that I mentioned. You'll be also learning how to use Argo workflow alternative for Kubeflow for building an end-to-end ML pipelines with it. So this is the robust curriculum that we have outside in the market. This is the best one. And you can scroll down further. You can able to notice the skills that you'll be mastering, the skills that something that you can add in your resume, the tools that we will be mastering throughout this particular program. And if you can scroll down, you can see the same curriculum here, the pricing structure. And I would definitely ask you folks to scroll down. Here, I would recommend you to check the testimonials, see what people think about it, and how the program is, how we are delivering a content, etc. Right? And yes, we have also published the testimonials of the people who posted their certificates and their achievements in the LinkedIn. So you can also take a look on that. So this is the program that we do have. And let me help you. Let me help you rule the world of AI with you. Maybe for the next 10 to 15 years. So let's get started with quick Q&A. So please go ahead and ask million questions. I'm here to help you right now. So thank you so much. And as I mentioned, these offers are pretty much limited. Only for 5 seats are available. You can use the link that I shared. And yes, you will be receiving a certificate after you completing this program as well. So now let me help you to unmute your mic. You can also unmute your mic and we can have a conversation. So possibly you should able to unmute your mic and you can also ask your questions in the chat. Let me answer your questions right now. So in the meantime, someone unmutes and talk. Let me start answering the questions from a chat. Okay. So go ahead, unmute your mics and we can have a conversation.
Hey Samarth, hi, Amit here this side.
Hey Amit, how are you? Yep.
I'm good. I hope I'm audible good.
You are good. Yep. You're loud enough. Please go ahead.
All right, okay. So 2 things in my mind. One thing is it's a tool-based pipeline like we have at CI/CD, right?
Correct. Go ahead.
Yeah. So see, we do have agentic AI available as of now to build this.
Okay. Probably not.
Okay.
Let's
And
talk about what is agentic AI. So agentic AI is different. Let's say an agentic AI, let's say we are talking about an AI agent, which is a combination of your large language models. And okay, this is a bit of an out of a scope question, but let me just answer that for you. Okay, let me just pick the marker. Okay. But let's say
yeah.
when you're talking about AI agents, right? An AI agent. But let's talk about what is a building block of this AI agent. An AI agent as an LLM, right? But who builds this LLM? This LLM will be built by someone called data scientist. But if this data scientist want to deliver this LLM to the production, who does it? It's called MLOps engineer. if you need an LLM in a production, you need to have a data scientist and an MLOps engineer to build an automation to deliver it to the production. Once you have your LLM in the production, you use this LLM. Along with LLM, you use different components. Let's say you have, let's say, a prompt engineering. You might be having set of actions that your AI agent has to take. That's how it's going to work. So the building
Okay.
block itself, it's an AI agent, right? Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Second question that I have on this.
Yeah.
Do you have any formats for daily learning? Because see, weekends probably I can say for myself, it's just more
Correct.
dedicated to the family, right? And that's why I wanted to prefer
Got
something
it,
which
Amit.
is like,
Let me answer
daily
that
life.
question. So obviously, yes, we need to spend a time with a family, and obviously that's our priority. And again, at the end of the day, we need to also focus on upskilling here. So that's why we have various different options that you can able to explore that can able to help you to get started. So consider that when you go for advanced or maybe advanced plus plan. So one opportunity is you get twice the chance to take a live session. The another option is basically, let's say, so one is, let's say, folks who going to miss the live session sometimes, but not definitely, I don't encourage miss all the live sessions, but in worst case scenario, if you're going to miss the live sessions, you again get an access to the recordings on a Monday, and where you will be getting an access, where you can get an access to go ahead and review the recordings, and you can come back, ask million questions in a debugging sessions where I can able to help you with that. So currently, yes, our live sessions are scheduled on weekends, but again, so we give twice the chances to take a live session and access to the recordings anytime. And folks who register for the topmost plan, they get access to the recordings immediately. So you learn it with the support anytime that you want. Parallel, you can attend the live sessions, basically, Amit. So this is how going to work.
Thanks a lot, Sarath. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so folks, go ahead and ask your question. I have a few questions in the chat. Let me start answering that. Do we get access to all the tools? AK, someone says name AK answers that. Yes, let's say when we're talking about this program, it's a multi-cloud and open source. Open source tools are not, it's not a biggest deal because it's open source. You can download it and we can run it on your PC. So most of the time we'll be running our workloads on cloud, but we'll be also using a local PC. So when it comes to the cloud platform, so you will be getting an access to create your own cloud accounts. When it comes to AWS, Azure, and GCP, they provide a free trial. So those free trial limits would be more than enough for us to explore in our program. And in case, let's say, if your free trial is exhausted and if you're getting some bills, you don't have to worry. So always when you're getting a bills, you don't have to pay the bills because we are students. We are here to learn, not for doing some production work, making some money by running things on a cloud. But there are always a tricks and tricks that we can able to use to request this cloud platforms to waive these bills off. Okay. Yeah. Please go ahead. Let's see who is going to ask the second question in a voice. So please go ahead and unmute your mic and we can talk.
Hi, sir. This is Naveen.
Hey,
Uh,
Navin. Yep.
yeah, my first question is like where and all actually like DevOps roles and all it already fulfills this CI/CD, but MLOps where it will get to fit and then what are all roles and responsibilities apart from MLOps? See, already existing setup and all they can hire DevOps and they can do this model trainings and all. See, model
Definitely
trainings I
not.
asked. Yeah,
Definitely not.
so
MLOps is different and DevOps is different. Let me explain that. Yeah, please, you can complete your question.
yes, yes. But see, already the people are hiring for the DevOps, and they are like giving their giving like work like CI/CD and run. But completely nobody is going to work till the deployment. Like you have showed me like 15 modules. Like 15 modules are so
Exactly.
many tools. It got covered. So where and all our work will be like we are going to work.
Good question.
That's
See, consider that when it comes to DevOps and MLOps is different. Let's say when it comes to DevOps engineers, let's say we are not just talking about CI/CD tools itself. There are DevOps engineers who also works on the a bit of an infrastructure side. But MLOps is not just an alternative of DevOps here. Don't consider that. MLOps engineers would be also doing an infrastructure. It depends on the job role, folks. So there are MLOps job roles. They might not ask for infrastructure, but there are MLOps job roles who ask for infrastructure. Let's say we'll start from the infrastructure. So you would be focusing on designing the infrastructure, especially when you're working on a lead positions in MLOps, your responsibilities would change. Let's say we'll start from the senior positions in MLOps and architects. First, you would be deciding what tool to be used in your organization, whether you're using open source tools. CI/CD is not the only tool in MLOps. CI/CD is not the only tool. We discussed a lot of tools, right? You'll be working on all these tools. So architects will decide an infrastructure, right? Architects, and we'll be having an infrastructure team will be deploying this infrastructure. MLOps engineers would do that infrastructure basically. And then comes an MLOps engineer. The next duty of an MLOps engineer, you design this end-to-end pipelines and automation. So consider that you design this ML based pipelines to deploy the infrastructure. You design this ML based pipelines with collaboration with data scientists, because data scientists will bring the data science code. A Python code will be written by him, and he will be collaborating with you, and you will be building an automation. So what should be running first, whether we're going to run data preparation, then what you'll be doing that. Then again, as a MLOps engineer, you will be designing the pipeline for taking the best model that is available in a model registry and to go ahead and deploy this to the production. And again, as a MLOps engineer, you would be deploying the model monitoring tools, and you'll be every day will be monitoring these models, and you'll be generating a report. You'll be discussing with your team in a daily meetings of what's happening in your model, whether it is really good, it's good quality, whether it's deteriorating the quality. In that case, what would be the next step? Retraining these models. How do you retrain these models? We discussed about a level 4 architecture projects. How do you implement this level 4 automation to retrain the model again and again? So this is would be putting in a quick overview. It's not just CI/CD, it's more than that.
Yeah, but in reality, like things are like it's different. Like if they are hiring, like they are asking like cloud only. Like if you are going for the DevOps, they are asking for the cloud, and then they are expecting monitoring also. So we
Exactly.
won't be that much like proficient in that monitoring. If you take the separate tools are there, but they are expecting like it's in master level. They are expecting. Then like I am experiencing now, so if I'm changing now, then how it will be like that, I'm thinking it's already
Okay,
I'm
see, the
wasted
thing
in my.
is, let's say,
Yeah.
a good question. So the thing is definitely, if I'm hiring a person, even if I'm hiring a fresher, I would like him to be an expert in that, right? And every organization thinks in a way that, let's say, if you know all the three cloud platforms, I'm really good, I want to hire you, right? But they want to know everything, right? So they want everyone to be a master here, right? But definitely, right? So that's where we have this program, so where we are helping the peoples to get mastered in that. And again, so here we are not talking about data science. Let's say we are more focused on MLOps here, right? So talking about, let's say we are talking about, we can use a lot of monitoring tools, if I want to put it in that way, right? So let's say we are talking about monitoring tools which is more specific bias towards the MLOps only. So here we are not talking about how can you use a monitoring tool to work in a DevOps industry. Here we teach DevOps. The DevOps is not for you to go ahead and work in a DevOps industry. You can work as DevOps engineer, although, but we won't encourage we do teach DevOps in module number 4, for an example, CI/CD, but that is more focused on how you can master your MLOps, how you can use those CI/CD pipelines to master yourself into MLOps. Basically, that's how it works. So the question is, what happens if I start right now, right? So that's a good question. So definitely, I mean, there is no a time that you say that, okay, whether you're starting early or late doesn't matter here. See, consider there is always a different position. And again, let's say when we have a peoples here who taking for an MLOps, so we carefully help them in, especially when we're talking about this resume preparation. So you would be always having some related things that you can relate here, because you're not completely doing alt control delete of your resume and drafting your complete resume from a scratch. So consider that you might be coming from a cloud experience, you have some cloud background, you might be coming from a software testing background. Software testing experience also helps in MLOps. You might be coming from a DevOps background. That means your DevOps background does helps here in MLOps, because CI/CD tools are pretty much common here. You're coming from a cloud background, you do understand the infrastructure, playing with different tools in a cloud platform. We see what really matches in your resume. Based on that, we recommend you what kind of a positions that you can able to apply. So there are there are MLOps job roles who is which they are also looking for both infrastructure as well as working on the pipelines, right? So maybe if you're here we teach both, but if you want to go for only the MLOps side, where you'd be only focusing on building an automation only but not infrastructure, it's up to you, right? So there are different positions where you can carefully opt for.
Okay, that like I am not good at programming, so how it will be like
So can you come again?
suitable for me? Yeah, like I am not good at programming. like
Okay. See,
Python and all.
the
So
thing
how it
is
will be like
here,
helpful
definitely,
for me.
again, the answer is same. Here, I'm not saying that you can become an MLOps engineer with zero programming experience. It doesn't work. So you need to have some minimal of any programming experience. At least a Python basics would work. I'm not talking about an expertise here.
Okay.
Consider that if a data scientist, Navin, he comes and asks me, see, I'm a data scientist. I'm not really good at Python, but will it help me if I take an MLOps? But consider that as still the goal for that person to work as a data scientist. But I would say you need an experience, expertise level experience in Python. That's for data scientist. But when it comes to an MLOps engine, mostly you'd be working on the pipelines, the automation side, but still you'll be closely working with data scientists. You need to have a minimal Python skill sets. Okay. So saying that Navin asked this particular question. So usually some folks, DevOps folks, they comes and ask me a question. Sharath, I'm not so much good at programming, but how do I get some basics out of it? So this is an MLOps program. So here we don't teach Python for you. This is not Python programming session. This is not a data science program. We don't teach data science. Data science is not needed. And again, saying that people's made a lot of requests from past couple of batches. We have started providing this free resources, as I mentioned, as we're talking about this curriculum. We do have this free resources. Under this free resources, there are some free materials that we provide where you can able to get some intermediate level experience in Python. And there are some practice materials. If you can able to practice, you can become an expert in that. So this free resources would also help for the folks to also brush up your Python basics. So that could be the solution that we can provide. But Python, our data science is not part of this particular program, but there are data science basics tutorials as well. It's up to you whether you want to take it. You can take it, Naveen.
Yeah. But we are going to write any scripting, or else only thing we have to understand, those who wrote data science people wrote that, we have to
So
understand, then
yeah,
we have
so
to
let's say
make it.
here you are not going to write a data science script to train the model. Definitely not. But at the end of the day, as an MLOps engineer, you need to understand what's happening. So consider that you need to understand what kind of an, let's say I will throw this question easily. Let's say you are a DevOps engineer. When you're saying you're a DevOps engineer, you cannot say that I have no idea what my software engineer is doing. I have no idea what kind of a framework, a software he is using, right? Even though
Yeah.
you're a DevOps engineer, you don't build a software. You need to have a clear idea of what kind of a
Idea.
framework. Then only you can able to go ahead and build your software, right? It's same thing how it works in MLOps as well. So we will be building a model from the scratch here. We will be right. I mean, so you here I won't be asking, okay, go ahead and build a model, try write the code for training the model. No, we will be building a model. I will be going to the script each and every line. So you should be able to understand, at least if I go ahead and say the basic logics of, okay, this is how the loops work, this is how the condition works, you should be in a position to understand. That's the level of basics you need. Okay, saying that, I will go to the next question. Naveen, if you have more questions,
Yeah.
you can ask me the next turn,
No,
because
no,
I would
that's
like
it.
to give a chance for
That's
others as well.
Yeah,
that's
sure,
it.
sir.
Thank you.
This is Ramesh.
Hey, Ramesh, yes.
Yeah, my question may be overlap with the previous, but
Go ahead.
more aligned with the UI tools. So
Good.
throughout our course, possibly more than a dozen tools we interact, and what is the level of expertise we get on each of those tools as an MLOps operations, and possibly some of the knowledge in the scripting and some of the knowledge how to interact with
Exactly.
each of these stakeholders, and we
Got it.
communicate in their language and we
Got it.
understand and we set up a flow. But
Got it.
within the 6 months, like 3 months of our course of all the weekends, so how expertise we get into each of these tools?
Perfect. Good question. So here, let's say we are talking about where we will be expertising on 3 different cloud platforms, right? So consider that. Let's get started from Git. So Git is Git, whether it is GitHub or any other Git-based tools, there's no difference in that. Let's talk about the CI/CD tools. The way CI/CD tools is exactly same in any cloud platform that we're talking about. So the way the DevOps work never changes. So here, how you can able to, let's say, get this experience, like let's an in-depth of what we are talking about. Any tool that we cover here in terms of MLOps, we do cover in depth. So consider that, let's say we'll be experimenting with the DevOps tools on top of AWS. Let's say we understand what AWS code pipelines are, AWS code builders, or code deployers, or code committers. So let's say we're talking about AWS code pipeline is basically the CI tool or CD tool, basically, right? So we will be experimenting with a similar tool on alternative cloud, right? So consider that what could be an alternative of AWS code pipelines In GCP, let's say we're talking about AWS. In GCP, we have something called Cloud Build. Let's say if you go to Azure, we do have Azure pipelines, right? So what we are trying to learn comparatively, we will be exploring a various different pipelines. That's the best way of getting a clarity of what each and every tool is capable of. So here, let's say for an example, in Azure, we'll be having a different flavor. So consider that in Azure, we have both the ways. You can use an UI way of building a pipeline, or you can use infrastructure. I mean, the pipeline as a code concept, you can use an ML itself to build a pipeline, right? So we'll be exploring a different flavors in different cloud. That means overall you'll get an idea. So how does a DevOps tools works in various different cloud platforms? That's a flavor of the entire DevOps. The same thing applies for every other tool as well. So as you discussed, Ramesh, yes, there are tools which is UI based. There are tools which is based on a script based. So let's say when we are working with Dockers, we'll be working with command line interfaces. When we're working with Kubernetes, we'll be working with command line interfaces. So let's say here we'll be experimenting with Dockers and Kubernetes. We'll be using an open source setup on your PC. But if we go with module number 6, which is again, we'll be talking about Kubernetes deployment strategies. We go in depth, understand what are the different strategies and organization forms in order to deploy your applications to Kubernetes, right? So that's again a different flavor. So here we will be talking about EKS, which is Elastic Kubernetes Service. But if you go to module number 15, so you will be experimenting with Kubernetes tools on top of GKE, that is Google Kubernetes Engine, and you'll be experimenting with Azure Kubernetes as well. That means again, you'll be having a comparative learning. So you get again in depth of understanding various different tools and various different cloud platforms. The same thing works with module number 9 as well. So when we're talking about module number 9, where we are building a level 4 architecture project, AWS has different flavor. Azure has different flavor. So because module number 9 will be covering, so we'll be covering one by one. First we go for AWS, then we go for Azure, then we go for GCP. So that means within a span of 3 weekends, you could able to easily digest, you get a clear clarity on, okay, what AWS offers in terms of end to end, what kind of flavors of tools they have, or Azure or GCP for an example. It's a comparative way of learning on various different cloud platforms. That's the best way of becoming a mastering on those tools, Ramesh.
Got it. So do you expect any preliminary knowledge on these tools? Because so
Got
only
it.
few tools
Good
we use
question.
on day-to-day activities, right? So
Exactly. I got your question. So definitely not, but at least I would expect you need to have some decent knowledge in a software. If you're in a software industry, you understand how the software lifecycle works. That definitely works. So here, how it works. So consider that uh, maybe here is a common question what people ask. A DevOps engineer comes and asks me a question. Do I need to learn data science to get into MLOps? Definitely not, because you're not going to build, let's say, machine learning models here. You will be doing an operations. But that doesn't mean that you will be not getting a clarity of a data science. We build models from the scratch in this program, but you don't need to learn data science for that. Again, in the same way, data scientists are ML engineers or some other people's, they comes and ask me a question. So do I need to learn DevOps to get into MLOps? Definitely not. Especially if you take data scientists, they have no idea on DevOps tools. They have no idea on CI/CD tools. So that's where we have a different flavors here. We do cover, let's say, the DevOps tools on top of module number 4. You understand how DevOps tools works, and you understand how to integrate that with when you're getting into MLOps basically. So if we don't have much prerequisites, as I mentioned, the only thing is if you have decent basics of any programming, at least a Python, you are good to go.
thank you very much. I think I don't want to take much of your time, so let others
Perfect,
also
Ramesh.
take the opportunity.
Yeah,
So I would like
I have
to
a quick
have a
question.
call, one-on-one call to schedule and
Definitely, please.
customized
Please.
question and answer. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Okay, I have
So,
Hi, I
Ronaldo
have
is
a
asking.
question.
yeah, my
Please go
question
ahead.
is, so normally when you are in a class, it might not be directly translate into real work well. So say you finish the training and you help the person to get a job and the person get an assignment from work that he's stuck with. Is there any way you guys can also help that so the person get used to the work environment until he get comfortable?
If you don't mind, Ronaldo, can you just repeat your question? So there's some echo. I couldn't able to get your words. You talked about assignments. Can you just put it again, if you don't mind?
Sharath, your voice is low.
Okay,
I
I'm sorry.
think
Yeah. Ronaldo, like, yeah, I got your question, but your voice is a bit echoed. I couldn't able to get your 100% words. You said, talked about assignments. We have an assignments. Let me just understand your question again. So can you just please go ahead and repeat it?
So I'm talking about after the course. So you are in a working environment now, and you are given an assignment at work, and you get stuck. Is there a way the person can get help from you guys?
Perfect. Good question. That's what exactly I've explained it already. So when I'm talking about the technical job support, the step number 4 is all about that. So I will give you a few examples of what we are doing already. So as part of this 6 months of technical job support, the support that you're talking about, Ronaldo, is already part of it. So for an example, we do have folks who are working in a senior positions in MLOps. So yeah, so I can see that there are few people's. I mean, maybe I will. I don't want to mention a name. So one person is working for an organizations in UAE, and you know that. So most of the UAE-based, Arab-based countries, they don't want to use a cloud. They go mostly into open source. So this person, after completing a program, so he's trying to set up an infrastructure. Basically is going for a open source Kubernetes based infrastructure. So we help them in let's say drafting an architecture. So what you should have, like how many nodes that you can have, like basically what we call it as worker nodes. So those things. And if I want to provide another example, a person who is working in coming from a various different background like data engineer and data science, and now he is working in a, I'm talking about another person, so he's working in a senior lead position in MLOps. But the first duty for him is basically to draft an architecture on top of AWS. They're using AWS. But the thing is, the person who is doing this architecting, he has been left the job, but he's taken over the job. So I have sat with 3 different architecture reviews. So basically, they are using SageMaker, EKS on top of AWS. They have a couple of models there. There are a couple of models on SageMaker. They're building an end-to-end automation. So we do that exactly. So as I'm talking about a technical job support, but as I'm talking about an assignment, a technical job support is not something like that. Like you got a job, you give me a job. That means you give me that assignment for me. I do everything for you, but you sit simply do nothing. No, it's not something like that. So let's say if you got stuck the job, if you're stuck in a job, we help you push you forward, right? But we don't take your job. We don't do the job for you. But
yeah, I got it. Yep. That's
perfect.
it.
Thank you,
I have a
Ronaldo.
question.
Thanks for that. Yeah, please go ahead.
My question is, does the MLOps, interview involve coding round? And if
Good.
so, is there support or curriculum that supports it?
Okay, good question. So definitely yes. When it comes to any interview, they will be having a coding round, right? So coding that does mean, let's say, they might. So everything that we learn from this program would be more sufficient. So, but let's say when I'm talking about coding, it may not be a Python. Let's say as an MLOps engineer, they might ask you to write a very simple basic Python programming. So for an example, they might ask you to write simple loops or something. So that definitely a basic Python thing that you need to learn. But definitely anything apart from that, let's say we are talking, they might ask you to write, can you write a Docker file for how to pack a model? So they might ask you a question, can you write a simple Kubernetes deployment file? They might ask you to write a simple ML structure. How does an ML structure would look like in Azure DevOps or GCP DevOps? So this is something that we learn in this program as well. Yes, we learn Docker from scratch. We learn Kubernetes from scratch. Yes, but this is something that you learn through the program. But you need to have some strategy. You need to get prepared for the interview, right? You have some things to be get prepared. So let's say what you need to prepare in programming, Dockers, Kubernetes, what kind of a questions they ask, how you going to answer that. That is something that we deal in this technical job support, Avdash. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I have a follow-up question. So if somebody is not from an industrial background, right? They may be from a research background.
Got it.
And maybe in academia. So do you think that somebody with that kind of a background can fit into this program and can get a job in MLOps?
Perfect. Okay, so here can be different verticals, but let's say when it comes to the person coming from academic background, there are a lot of peoples from the academic background. They have taken our program. They also got the job, but and again we have to carefully analyze what kind of a research. So consider that you're already coming from the research background of, maybe consider that you are into data science for an example. Maybe your vertical would be a bit different. So you can also look into the research kind of a roles within MLOps. Maybe if you're good at data science, for an example, I would recommend there are for an example, in a previous slide I'd mentioned there are research and applied scientist roles where they would be also looking for an MLOps along with that. So maybe that kind of a research roles could be a best fit. But if
if you don't want to carry forward with that research, but you want to just get into the MLOps kind of a role, yes, you can get into the MLOps roles as well. But one is the skill section, but definitely, let's say one more thing that we need to demonstrate your experience as well. So maybe in case if you've done some kind of work into, let's say, MLOps, or maybe let's say into AI or some related field, into the cloud or data engineering, any related field into IT, we need to see the possibilities how we can demonstrate that in your resume, right? Because we need to have something mentioned on your resume should help HRs to filter your resumes as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate.
Okay. Thank you. And Amit is asking a question in a chat. Even for senior resources, for managers, they ask this basic question. Definitely yes, because I mean, some organizations they does it. See, usually, let's say what happens in a first round of interview, you'll see first 50% of questions will be on your resume, 50 will be on your JD. They would like to evaluate a minimal basics. Maybe they might ask you to write this Docker file. They might ask you to write this a simple Kubernetes file or something like that. Would happen. Yeah. Okay, let me know, folks. I'm going to spend a few more minutes. Ajit is asking a question in a chat. I'm a senior project manager planning to transition into being an AI product manager. Would you recommend me transition into MLOps and add a question? If not, then would it be, of course, help my transition? Okay, let me just read it. Senior project manager planning to transition into being an AI product manager. Definitely, let's say if you're already working, if I'm understanding yours correct, if you're already working as an AI product manager, MLOps can fit into your AI product manager role on top of it. I don't think so you want to give up on AI product manager because you can still continue, but MLOps can also open a different doors for you. I mean, so rather than you just focusing on building an AI models, the projects, working your team, fulfilling that requirement, you can focus on the complete delivery of that AI as well to the production, right? So starting from architecting. So that means you can look into the another position as well, AI architect, but again, the skills also does matters. So, and again, one more aspect is you can also look for MLOps architects as well, Ajit, which can also work for you. Okay, so let me just see if you folks have any other question. You can go ahead and unmute you and talk. And meantime, let me just check if I can answer any other question in the chat. Okay. So Parimal, if I'm answering your questions wrong, sorry, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I'm sorry. So he's asking, will be using a free trial accounts for practicing? Yes, definitely. Like most of the time, the free trial accounts what this cloud platform offers, AWS, Azure, GCP, that would be more sufficient to get started. As I mentioned, in case if you're getting a very minimal bills, there are tricks that we can use to waive these bills off as well. Okay, so let me see if you folks have any other question. So in the meantime, folks, please go ahead and proceed with your registration. If you have a million questions, ask me, call me anytime. I'm your person. I'm sharing a link again in the chat window. So you can use the first link for registration. I will just demonstrate. So once you click on this first link, you will be redirected to the page, which will look like this, our landing page. So where you can go ahead and, I'm sorry, 1 second. It says a different date. 1 second. Let me just go to my incognito mode. Yeah, so once you'll be redirected to this page, and so you'll be redirected to a landing page where you can go ahead and take a look in detail about our program. So yeah, so here is our complete curriculum. So all the 15 modules curriculum you can able to access, the projects in detail. And so you can able to go ahead and check the demo session of today's session on the same page, post our today's demo session. So here you can go ahead and talk to me directly, just send the message if you want, or call me. So I have a phone number left. So then you can go ahead and, let's say if you're going to proceed with the registration, you can simply click on register now button. So go ahead and fill your name. Yep. So then my phone number. And so then you'll be redirected to an actual page where you can go ahead and pick the favorite plan as we discussed. So we have two options. If you want to go with INR or you want to go with USD, you can go for international participants. So you can find the features of all those plans here. And as I mentioned, let's say we have this free upgradation offer.
Okay, are you looking for the topmost plan? Don't register for basic, don't register. I mean, so you just simply go ahead and register for advanced plan. You just need to click on pay now and your plan will be upgraded internally to advanced plus. And next 24 hours, you can get started with our program with the support from me. So the same thing applies for the international participants. So we do have various different options where you can go with the payments. We do have EMI options by default. Here you can enter your name and phone number. So here we have in various different options, like for all the kind of UPIs. So then comes, we do have EMI options by default, starting from 3 months tenure to maximum of 24 months tenure. You can pick your favorite debit card that for you to get started with. And we also support minimal debit cards for EMI. But when it comes to EMI on your debit card, your bank has to provide an eligibility. So far we support HDFC and Indus Bank. So you can check it. And we do also have a pay later option, which is a PayPal pay later option you can also proceed for. So yeah, so apart from that, when it comes to international participants, we also support two different options. You can go for, let's say, yeah, the card option, or you can also go for a wallet. The PayPal option is available. So you can try with both options here, right? So yep, so that's it. And so let me see if I have any other questions. So I've shared the link, proceed with the registration. We do have just 5 seats on this ritual, the offer that we are running. So that means once we are done with 5 seats, the free upgradation offer is over. So feel free to call me anytime. I have left my phone number. You can call me if you have more questions, you need more consulting, we can connect and we can discuss. Thank you so much. And let me answer a few more questions that we do have. Yeah. So can you please explain a bit about the module number 15, Santosh Kumar? So Santosh Kumar, let's say module number 15 will be a self-paced videos, and a module number 15, we won't be having a live session. Okay. So we'll be sharing an access to the recordings in a module number 15, 1-5, right? So, but module number 15 is mostly based on whatever we have learned in above modules itself. You'll be exploring a new tool, Jenkins there, but when we are getting started with Jenkins, so we will be using the other tools within the Jenkins like Dockers, which we already covered, MLflow, which we have already covered. So module number 15 will be self-paced, but we will be having a debugging session support in that. So how long it will take to complete the program? So let's say for an example, so our program is around 12 weekends. Otherwise, it's we will take 3 months around to complete the entire program. Yep. So we'll be having a 4-hour session every day. So 4 hours Saturday and 4 hours Sunday. That's how it's going to work. Okay, so let's see if I have any other question left in the chat. Okay, I can see Vice. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So let's say any certification exams for this course. Let's say so far when it comes to MLOps, there is no direct certification name called MLOps, but every tool, every technology that we cover in this particular program is part of other certifications actually. So consider that when it comes to every tool that we cover on top of AWS, you can take an AWS certification program, like AWS has AWS machine learning certification programs. So that is part of it. Everything that we cover on top of Azure is part of Azure data science certification. Similarly, Google data science certification. Anything that we cover on top of Kubernetes has their own certification program that you can take actually. Okay, so please also share a contact information, how to register for this program. Poonam. Sorry if I'm pronouncing name. So Poonam, I'm already sharing the registration links in a chat window. So you can use that registration links. If you're facing any difficulties, you can just reach out to me in the same number that I shared in a chat. Yep. So let me just check.
The information.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
I got it.
Thank you. Yeah, so access to the recordings. So how long we will get access to the recordings? So you will be getting an access to the recordings for next 1 year. So folks who take advanced and advanced plus plan, they get 2 batches of recordings for the next 1 year. And again, when we're talking about the recordings, it is for 1 year, but based on the request, we will be we can able to extend these recordings for a couple of months as well. But when we're talking about the recordings, let's say every time when we are talking about this AI tools are exploring, the way the interface looks like, the way it's going to look like, it will be keep on changing, right? Yep. Okay, so I have few more questions in a chat. I will answer that 1 second. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that's it. That's it. I believe I answered all the questions. If I didn't, please go ahead and paste it in the chat window. I'm just scrolling up and up and up. So yeah, perfect. So saying that, thank you so much, folks. I believe you enjoyed the program. You learned what is MLOps is going to look like. And obviously, here is your way for your future to rule the world of AI. And again, to be part of the future. It's all about AI. We know that, right? So yes, thank you so much. And so please be part of this particular program. And I mean, whether it's this program or any other program. So make sure you be the first, right, to the rule the AI, right? Don't get more competitors along with you. So thank you so much. So Ramesh is asking a question. Can I call you right away after this session? Please do. I'm here to receive your call. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much. Enjoy and don't miss the program. Thank you, folks. Bye. Enjoy your day. Yep.